pushing its way in. So do watch out for that. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this memoir Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Sanitary products in the urinals. Joining me now is a diversity and inclusion facilitator, Katie John Went, who also manages to talk sense on this subject, which is a very rare gift, to be honest with you. Katie, what do you make of this story?
Well, you set me up to fail now. I've got to talk sense. And it's a nonsense. It's a nonsense story in many respects. I mean, no harm's being caused. On the one hand, I would call this probably over-inclusivity, kind of well-meaningness gone too far, which then eventually does cause a backlash. And it's a backlash on people like me who are trans as well, because it just makes us obviously look a little ridiculous. But I understand where it came from. Some people, up until the Supreme Court judgment, have been going into toilets according to their acquired gender, their gender presentation, their gender identity, rather than their sex at birth, which does mean that trans men going into the men's loos may need a tampon. But the problem is, if a trans man were to actually press the button, immediately that means the trans guys just outed themselves, basically saying, look, I have some female needs. And it's not exactly going to be safe for that person in there anyway, nor kind of discreet or respectful or anything else. The better situation would be to place them in a unisex toilet, or the disabled as well. So if you know you've got a period, I would class a period as a disability in the moment in that sense. And absolutely, I don't think any disabled person would complain about them going in and using it. But the idea that it may cause, I don't know what Maya said, is that illegality and harassment, and that the men are suddenly going to feel at risk of harassment from these trans men on their raging periods. I mean, the risk of some people on their raging periods is another matter.
The People's Channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you, and a happy Monday. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. Here's what's coming up on today's show.
So are you saying we haven't got the same sort of gangs that are in Rotherham, Bradford and lots of other places in the country?
Just for you what's a misunderstanding, what does she mean by that?
You know full well what I mean by that.
Of sensationally accused London Mayor Sadiq Khan of being part of a cover-up into allegations of rape gangs in London. I'll be joined by the fearless Maggie Oliver and also by GB News reporter Charlie Peters.
And case studies assessed by the police inspectorate have all the hallmarks of grooming gang abuse in London.
And GB News has obtained a copy of the book that could bring Prince Andrew down. The posthumous autobiography of his teenage sex accuser, Virginia Giuffre, is not on sale publicly until tomorrow. But we exclusively bring you up to the inside scoop on a sordid and highly contested tale. And a convicted killer who strangled his girlfriend stands to receive thousands of pounds in benefits from behind bars. On today's show, I'll be joined by Emma Webber, whose son Barnaby was murdered by Valdo Callaghan. Incredibly, the triple knife killer also gets benefits while inside jail, and Emma will tell me it's time for this cruel loophole to be closed. And a Nigerian immigrant who pretended to be a female NHS worker called Joyce has dodged jail. Well, the fraudulent Lucius Ngoko worked in Chester A&E for 2 entire months, where he washed and even dressed patients. When Brits are jailed for Facebook posts, is this yet another example of two-tier justice? And an electrifying new poll has shown that an astonishing 60% of Brits view Sir Keir Starmer as robotic, with a mere 17% describing the PM as human. They used to call Theresa May the Maybot, but has she now been outmoded by a new model? Welcome to RoboKeir. You know, 70% of people in Yorkshire, when they were asked, thought Keir Starmer was robotic, and hardly anybody in God's own county thinks the Prime Minister is human. But it gets worse. Rachel Reeves is deemed less human than Sir Keir Starmer. Nigel Farage, the most human. Isn't it funny how a politician seems to have been hijacked by robots? Isn't that the problem? They don't speak the same language as us viewers and us ordinary folk out there. And on today's show, an incredible bust-up in City Hall. London Mayor Sadiq Khan find himself on the receiving end of a cover-up charge. We'll have Maggie Oliver, the legendary fearless campaigner, on the show, plus Susan Hall, who raised those concerns at City Hall. Get in touch usual ways, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. Now it's time for your headlines, and here's Katie Bowen.
Martin, thank you and good afternoon. The headlines at 3 minutes past 3. The Metropolitan Police have confirmed they're actively investigating claims Prince Andrew tried to dig up dirt on his sex accuser Virginia Giuffre. It follows revelations in her memoir alleging Andrew's team even tried to hire internet trolls to hassle her online. Giuffre, who died earlier this year, wrote that after years of being gaslit and dismissed, she wanted a meaningful apology from Prince Andrew, who paid millions to settle her civil case. Andrew denies all allegations, but the claims have reignited scrutiny over his past links to Jeffrey Epstein and mounting calls from MPs to strip him of his dukedom. Elsewhere, the King is visiting a Manchester synagogue targeted in a deadly terror attack earlier this month. His Majesty was greeted by Rabbi Daniel Walker at the Heaton Park Hebrew congregation, where flowers and tributes now mark the spot of the deadly assault. 2 worshippers, Adrian Dolby and Melvin Kravitz, were killed when an attacker armed with a knife and fake suicide belt tried to storm the synagogue on Yom Kippur. 3 more people were seriously injured before police shot the attacker dead within minutes. The King's visit is being seen as a powerful show of solidarity with those affected by the tragedy. HMRC says they're working urgently to restore access to its website, one of thousands hit by a major internet outage affecting Amazon's cloud system. Apps including Snapchat, Duolingo and even UK banks like Lloyds and Halifax have all been caught up in the chaos. Amazon says it's dealing with significant error rates at one of its main data centres in the US, the tech behind millions of websites around the world. The outage has triggered a wave of complaints online, with users warning the internet has gone dark. Well, GBNews technology editor Aaron Brown says that today's outage is a reminder of how dependent we've become on just a handful of cloud providers.
Amazon is the biggest, but there are other options around. You know, Google has its own, Microsoft has a huge play in this space as well. But we are reliant on these American tech companies. They're the ones with the resources. They're building these data centers. So there's definitely a risk in that. But I would say, in general, you know, when incidents like this happen, it's incredibly inconvenient. You know, people are left with access to these key services for a few hours. But, you know, taking a longer view over the last 20 years, overall, the internet has become more reliable, more secure.
To the Middle East, where Hamas says it will hand over another hostage body later today, as President Trump insists the ceasefire in Gaza is still holding. The update comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner earlier today. Israel says it launched airstrikes overnight, which killed 44 people after Hamas militants fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire towards its troops in Rafah, killing 2 soldiers. Hamas denies the claim, saying it remains committed to the truce, but warns further strikes could cause a total collapse. Rachel Reeves says Brexit has left lasting scars on the UK economy, warning it's dealt a 4% long-term blow to growth. Speaking to global finance leaders at the IMF, she said the 2020 deal deepened Britain's productivity problem and must be acknowledged honestly. The Chancellor is expected to unveil new tax measures in next month's budget to repair the public finances. Meanwhile, the Conservatives are pledging £47 billion in spending cuts, setting up a major political clash over how to fix Britain's economy. And the government's planning a major shake-up of post-16 education with brand new V-levels set to replace BTECs and other technical courses in England. The aim is to simplify what ministers call a confusing system and give students a mix and match alternative to A-levels or T-levels. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says V-levels will offer a clearer path into good careers, but sixth form leaders warn the move could leave gaps. The plans come just ahead of a big announcement on university funding, as colleges warn rising costs are already pushing some into the red. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines. More from me shortly, but now it's back to Martin.
Okay, now let's kick off this week. We've got some breaking news as GB News' political editor Chris Hope just returned from the lobby briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman. Chris, it's going to be a beautiful week. What you got for me?
It's a long one. A long briefing we had with the PM spokesman just now because there was an early cabinet meeting of the entire cabinet because the PM and his Chancellor are away at various events this week. They couldn't do it tomorrow. The big news is no news. The government will not use powers to intervene to try and get the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans to the ground against Villa.
They've had all weekend to do nothing.
Well, it seems that way. Well, they tell us that behind the scenes they're working very, very hard, but they will not use Section 40 of the 1996 Police Act because that, we thought, gave them power to deal with it. Number 10 tell us this is only when a force is not functioning effectively and it can't be used in isolated cases. The PM spokesman said to us in the past half an hour that the PM has promised to do everything he can to get these fans to the game. This is the wrong decision. We're working urgently with all the parties.
That's the same as Friday.
Yes.
That's the same as Friday. You on this show on Friday.
Don't blame me, Martin.
You say
I know you do.
It's got three ministers on this, the top table on this international embarrassment. It's had all weekend. They've had all weekend, and we haven't moved an inch.
I did ask them.
It's a farce.
It's taken 3 days to get to nowhere, and they denied that and said behind the scenes lots of stuff happening because they won't use this power they've got in law because that must be used when a systemic failure of a police force. They're waiting for the West Midlands police force to come back with what they want. So in a sense, the timeline is now held by the police force, not by the politicians. All the time, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are thinking, well, can I risk going to Birmingham?
Well,
not sure if I can get in.
Yes, because all you do is put a police cordon around them, you march them in, you march them out. Anybody who's been to a tasty football match sees this routinely. What's taken them so long? I find it incredible.
It's one for the Met Police, one for the West Midlands Police, and we'll hear back from them shortly.
All right.
Quickly, other matters. Fiona Goddard has resigned as someone who's guiding the work of this vital grooming gangs inquiry. She herself, of course, is a victim of an organised street gang in Bradford. Now, Number 10 say this. It's vital, this inquiry. It delivers for the victims. That's the priority. They're working hard to get the right chair in place. The concern has been who should the chair be? Should it be a police officer or a former social worker? Apparently, Fiona Goddard did like the way he's being spoken to. The respect for victims wasn't there. They won't give a running commentary. They won't even give me a beginning of this inquiry, but they want to get it right, and that's why they're taking their time.
OK, Chris, so thank you very much. Two breaking news stories there. Superb stuff. See you later in the show. Moving on now on a grooming gang story. Sadiq Khan has been accused of covering up evidence of grooming gangs in the capital city, London, and the mayor is alleged to have read reports of young girls being raped in hotels by groups of men while publicly denying that there were any grooming gangs in the capital. Let's hear from GB News national reporter now, Charlie Peters.
Now, both the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, and the Metropolitan Police have repeatedly denied that the capital has any links to the Rotherham-style or Rochdale-style grooming gangs that have blighted those towns and so many others across the country. But the Express has uncovered 6 case studies that they think reflect an issue in London, and they've gathered them from reports from His Majesty's Inspectorate of the Police and the Fire and Rescue Services. And looking into those case studies, there are clear examples, according to grooming gang experts, of those sorts of offences playing out in London. In one case, a 15-year-old girl who told police she'd been raped by numerous men after going missing for several days. In another, 2 men were identified as suspects in the sexual exploitation of a 13-year-old girl. These have, it says, all the hallmarks of grooming gang child sexual exploitation. However, in January, when this issue resurfaced into national prominence, the leader of the Tories in City Hall, Susan Hall, she put it to Sadiq Khan, were there any grooming gangs in London? He was accused of stonewalling that answer.
So are you saying we haven't got the same sort of gangs that are in Rotherham, Bradford and lots of other places in the country?
Just for the misunderstanding, what does she mean by that?
You know full well what I mean by that.
At GB News, we have shown this year extensive trafficking links across the country of grooming gang abuse, with London being central to the movement of both abusers but also victims. We know of cases of girls being moved from Rotherham but also Bradford and Oxford and the east of England into the capital for the purpose of grooming gang abuse, often linked, we believe, to organised criminal gangs. It's clear that the concerns are rising in London about grooming gang abuse, and this carries on as further questions are asked about whether the national inquiry into the abuse gangs networks will come to the capital.
A potential scandal there in City Hall, and joining me now is the former detective constable for Greater Manchester Police, the fearless Maggie Oliver. Maggie, it's always a delight to have your company. Thank you very much for joining us today on GB News. Here's the nub of this. There are a number of reports written by His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services between 2016 and 2025, which do allude clearly to 6 potential victims of systemic child abuse and what appears to be grooming gangs, but Sadiq Khan doesn't seem to see it that way.
Good afternoon, Martin. No. This story obviously is the front page story of the Express, and I've worked with Zach and his partner in analysing some of the reports that they uncovered in and around London. I think what it's very important to say, first of all, Martin, is that this reflects exactly what I've experienced in relation to Rochdale and Rotherham and Telford, that there is a repeated denial of this kind of crime until it absolutely hits them in the face and they can no longer escape from the truth of what's going on. I was asked to look at some of the cases that they had uncovered. The first thing to say, though, Martin, is that these are only ones that are in the public arena. You know, if you try and get information out of these public bodies about abuse, about grooming, about even a child who died, they close ranks and they won't share those documents, even under SARS requests. And if you get them, they are redacted to such an extent that they are very difficult to understand unless you are on the inside. I was on the inside with Augusta and Rochdale. I didn't need their evidence to prove what was going on. With London, these reports were in the public arena, and yet even having read those as the Police and Crime Commissioner, Sadiq Khan still would not answer any questions posed by Susan Hall. He stonewalled her. And Charlie's quite right that the grooming gangs do operate in and out of London. What I can't really, well, I've seen it before, but the Met are probably one of the last bastions that are able to pretend this doesn't go on there. And it's really interesting, Martin, that the Met were given a right of response to that article in the Express. 24 hours after that deadline expired, they decided to acknowledge that, yes, they do have an issue, that this national team looking at historic cases have uncovered, I think it's 1,500 cases that have got to be relooked at again. But it was only after the deadline expired when they realised that, you know, the game's up. So Sadiq Khan, as the Police and Crime Commissioner, clearly has read these reports. He will be aware of many others. So I see public officials lying, covering up, concealing the truth, until there is nowhere else to hide. And, you know, I think this links in very well with the National Abuse Inquiry. And, you know, Charlie's just referred to Fiona. And I know Fiona, and she is one of the survivors that was going to be part of this panel, where they are actually really cherry-picking people to be involved. It's all behind closed doors. It's another dirty tricks campaign, you know, private WhatsApp messages, money going to organisations, and you wonder, what are the terms of reference? We've got an umbrella group of over 25 survivors, 10 of whom were the ones who met Baroness Casey back before she did her report in June. Not one of them has even been spoken to or approached. It really is another cover-up, another attempt to water down what this national inquiry should be. They're even trying to expand it to cover CSA and not grooming gangs, any form of group-based abuse. Again, trying to muddy the waters and pretend that this kind of offending is not still going on. And it is a national scandal.
And Maggie Oliver, is this part of that same old terrible story that we've talked about so many times in the past? And that is, there's a complete reluctance to face reality in the eyes because it might be upsetting to the voter blocks. It might upset certain communities. It might haunt police officers. It might haunt social workers. And it just feels, once again, that the entire establishment is closing ranks to make sure survivors don't get the justice they so richly deserve.
Yeah, and Martin, this is what I've seen for the past 15 years. And, you know, you look at, I mean, I mentioned earlier today, you know, Donald Trump called out Sadiq Khan, didn't he, when he came to the UK? Keir Starmer jumped in very quickly to say that he was his friend. And, you know, Keir Starmer was the one who in January was saying that people like me and survivors like Fiona, we are far-right extremists. Well, I find the fact that he's describing Sadiq Khan as one of his best friends to Donald Trump as quite interesting when I see what's going on with the National Inquiry, what's been going on in the Met, Sadiq Khan's complete lack of willingness to answer a very legitimate question from Susan Hall. It all, if you pardon my language, it all stinks. And it's something I've seen for 15 years. It's nothing new to me. But bit by bit, you know, the house of cards is falling down because the public know what's going on. And Charlie Peters and GBNews have been a great part of unpicking that corruption. It is corrupt. And the losers are the victims and the survivors. And the reason I speak out is because I don't want another generation of children to be failed in the way that, say, Fiona was. And that's why she fights. That's why all survivors fight for change for the future. This lot are more intent on covering up and protecting their own reputations than they are in seeing systemic change, which we urgently need.
Well, Maggie Oliver, I think with somebody like you on their side, there's no chance this is going to go away. You've been epic since the very, very, very beginning. Maggie Oliver, keep going. Please keep coming back on the show. It's always a pleasure to have your esteemed company. Thank you very, very much indeed. I'm joined in the studio today by GBNews senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Nigel, we've heard so many times about the government, politicians, police services closing ranks to try and stifle the truth. Is that going on now in City Hall?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think there's a cover-up, and I think that the central point, which is the one that Susan Hall was actually having a go at Sadiq Khan about, was that he had previously said there were no rape gangs in London. He didn't say that. What he actually said was that no incidents of rape gangs had been reported to the police, and that was backed up by the Met Assistant Commissioner Matt Twist. So there's a different argument. Clearly, child abuse was going on, but he also acknowledged he'd seen the material in the Inspector of Constabulary report.
And Nigel, that's the point. There are 6 cases, they're too graphic to even go into on television. 15-year-old girl gang raped by numerous men, missing for 4 days. 2 men identified as suspects in the sexual exploitation of a 13-year-old. A 15-year-old was plied with substances and made to carry out sex acts on men in a hotel room. It goes on, it goes on. The detail is grotesque. Sadiq Khan read those reports.
Yes.
Sadiq Khan commented on those reports. How can you not understand that that's part of the sexual grooming network? The evidence is abundant.
There was no question, obviously, that there was child abuse going on, so that is quite clear from the reports. The point that he was being asked by Susan Hall was whether or not these were grooming gangs in the same mould as Rochdale and Rotherham.
If it quacks like a duck and it flaps like a duck.
It's what the police are now looking at. That the point that they're making is that grooming gangs in London, yes, that they exist, but the kind of gangs don't sort of break down by ethnicity or nationality in the same way as they did in Rotherham and Rochdale.
OK, thank you, Nigel Nelson. We have some comments to read out here. A spokesperson for the Mayor of London told GBNews it is not a cover-up and instead Sadiq is committed to doing all he can to protect children in London from organised criminal and sexual exploitation and bring perpetrators to justice. Now, this includes his £15.6 million violence and exploitation support service, which provides specialist support to young Londoners who are vulnerable, caught up in or being exploited by criminal gangs in the capital, as well as supporting the Met to deliver a new child-first approach to a safeguarding and enforcement action to tackle county lines. And a spokesman for the Metropolitan Police also told GB News this. We are utterly committed to protecting vulnerable children and bringing those responsible to justice. Our data shows the group-based child sexual abuse and exploitation picture in London is more varied than in other parts of the country and does not neatly align with patterns of methodology, ethnicity or nationality seen elsewhere and reported on extensively. And a spokesman for the Home Office told GB News this. We have initiated a new policing operation, Operation Beacon Pause, overseen by the National Crime Agency, which has already flagged more than 1,200 closed cases of group-based child sexual exploitation for review. Now, still to come, we'll reveal the latest bombshells from Prince Andrew's teenage sex accuser. GB News has got hold of a copy of Virginia Giuffre's posthumous memoir. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 3:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Prince Andrew faces a potential police investigation as the Metropolitan Police looks into claims that the Prince pressured a bodyguard to dig up personal details on his teenage sex accuser. Now, this comes, of course, as Virginia Giuffre's upcoming memoir has sensationally alleged that the Prince hired internet trolls to hassle Virginia and other accusers. Well, let's speak now to GB News' Raw correspondent Cameron Walker. Cameron, you have a copy of that memoir there. As I understand it, it makes for pretty harrowing reading. Tell us what you discovered.
Yeah, it really does, Martin. Of course, we already knew, didn't we, that Virginia Giuffre, who took her own life in April, had accused Prince Andrew of having sex with her on 3 separate occasions when she was 17 years old. Claims that Prince Andrew continues to deny. But as you say, Martin, there are a number of other allegations in that book, including that he allegedly instructed his team to try and employ internet trolls to smear her name, essentially, when she was bringing litigation against Prince Andrew. If you remember, she settled out of court in a civil case against Prince Andrew in the United States, where Prince Andrew admitted no liability, but did reportedly pay out £12 million to Virginia Giuffre. But separately, of course, we've heard, haven't we, over the last couple of days that Prince Andrew allegedly instructed his taxpayer-funded bodyguard to try and dig the dirt on Virginia Giuffre when she first came out with these allegations against Prince Andrew back in 2011, when that now infamous photograph of the pair of them inside Ghislaine Maxwell's London home was first published by the Mail on Sunday. Metropolitan Police, I understand, are actively investigating that claim. We know, of course, that Prince Andrew has already said on Friday that he's no longer going to be using his Duke of York title. But the problem for the palace, and increasingly the government, is that the public and a number of backbench MPs want this matter to be taken further, i.e., Prince Andrew's title, the Duke of York, legally removed from him, and perhaps even the Prince title removed from him as well. The Duke of York title requires an Act of Parliament to be removed, and the government is essentially saying, well, it's up to the palace, and the palace is kind of implying that perhaps it's, you know, the king only acts on government advice. But all of this, of course, is overshadowing the king's work, and today he has been at the synagogue in Manchester, the Heaton Park Synagogue, the site of the horrific terrorist attack earlier this month, where 2 people lost their lives, to show solidarity with the community. And in the last few moments, I've received the following statement from Buckingham Palace, a spokesperson from Buckingham Palace. And they say that this is the king continuing with duty and service in his long-standing mission to bring communities together, particularly in times of challenge. And he hopes very much that the focus will be on the community impacted by this heinous crime rather than other matters. Other matters, of course, is being his brother, and how do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew? So the question is this going to be water under the bridge now, when this memoir, of course, is officially published tomorrow, or are there going to be further allegations against his brother, and is he going to have to inevitably take further action? And the jury is out on that one.
Well, Cameron Walker, the longer it goes on, the more of a toxic association Andrew becomes, and we understand there are yet more Jeffrey Epstein allegations coming out shortly, alluding to Prince Andrew's involvement. I've got a funny feeling this one won't go away anytime soon. Cameron Walker, thanks for joining us. Always an absolute pleasure. Now, stick with us, because on the show soon, there's lots more still to come to now, 4 o'clock including. I'll be speaking to a former acting national security advisor to Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, on everything from the ceasefire to the ban on Tel Aviv fans attending a football match in Birmingham, and, of course, the King at the synagogue in Manchester today. Don't go anywhere.
Good afternoon, this is your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. There are plenty of heavy showers around today, and there's more unsettled weather to come as we go through this week, particularly on Thursday. It could be very wet and windy, but for the time being we do have low pressure around the UK. In fact, we have a double low pressure system set up, with low pressure towards the north and also towards the south. It's the one in the south that's been the driving force for the heavy thundery showers that many places across particularly England and Wales have been getting through today, and there are more more of them to come as we go overnight, albeit they are going to ease a little bit. So some drier weather here and there. Clearer skies across parts of eastern Scotland, down into parts of northern England and perhaps some parts of central and southern England. And here temperatures could take a bit of a drop and there could be some fog around. Elsewhere, staying relatively mild and some murky conditions with the cloudy, wet weather at times as well. First thing tomorrow morning then, across much of Scotland away from the Far East, it's looking pretty cloudy, quite murky then, and also there will be some outbreaks of rain. Across Northern Ireland, it's a similar story, some heavy showery bursts pushing in from the west. And across England and Wales, well, yes, maybe some brightness at times, a bit more brightness than we'll have seen through today, but also a fair few showers around. Perhaps slightly fewer showers than through today, and they're not looking quite as intense, but nonetheless, the odd heavy shower is still possible. But the winds also should be a little bit lighter than today, and with a greater chance of seeing some of that sunshine breaking through and those lighter winds, for many it is going to feel a little bit warmer perhaps, even though temperatures are still around average for the time of year. And do watch out, as there will still be some showery bursts of rain around. More showery bursts of rain to come as we go through the evening, but it is going to turn a little bit dry as we go overnight Tuesday night into Wednesday. Wednesday perhaps looking like the driest day of the week for many, because by Thursday, well, that's when we could have some particularly wet and windy weather pushing its way in. So do watch out for that. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A9 southbound at Broxton has restrictions due to a broken down vehicle. Drivers should proceed with caution. The A40 is closed from St Clears West to Whitland West due to an incident. In Lincolnshire, the A46 southbound is closed between the A57 and the A1434 after a vehicle crossed the central reservation. In Surrey, the M25 clockwise at junction 14 has a collision, causing one-lane closure, and on the trains, Gatwick Express services are halted, and Greater Anglia faces major disruption between Broxbourne and Stratford London Liverpool Street. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 3:33 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, number 10 says the Prime Minister has promised to do everything in his power to get Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters to the Aston Villa game next month on November the 6th. The government is also awaiting West Midlands Police to say what resources they need to help man the Europa League clash after Israeli supporters were banned from attending. Now, this follows the cancellation of the Israeli Premier League derby between Maccabi Tel Aviv and Hapoel yesterday after what police described as violent riots. Well, joining now to discuss this and the broader context of peace in the Middle East is the former acting National Security Advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu, as Brigadier General Professor Jacob Nogel. Welcome to the studio. Pleasure to have your company.
Thank you very much.
Let's start, if we could, with the ceasefire, the fragile peace we're seeing emerging in Gaza. It started badly with Hamas executing political opponents in the streets. What's your understanding of the situation as it stands? Donald Trump that says that the ceasefire is holding.
Look, first of all, as you know, I'm now working as a senior fellow at the FDD. I'm here in UK to meet people from the Foreign Ministry, from the NSC and others, and I'm really glad to be here talking. Now, about Gaza. About Gaza, look, if you tell me 2 months ago that we would be in the situation that we are today in Gaza, that the IDF is holding 50% of the Gaza Strip, all over our borders and defending our villages, and all the life hostages are back in Israel, I'll tell you, you have to go to be hospitalized because you are talking nonsense. But this is the situation today. So let's start with the situation that is much better than I anticipated and many. But still, we have the Hamas trying to come back, and because the so-called international force that the UN should build is not working yet, I think Israel should work and do what she needs, again, with cooperation, of course, with the United States, with Trump administration. But the thing that I think we have to make sure, and I have me and my friend Rich Goldberg from the FDD, zero tolerance for ceasefire violations, zero tolerance for the delaying of the disarming, zero tolerance for Hamas trying to control the aid coming into Gaza using the UN, and zero tolerance for the involvement of the Muslim Brotherhood, Al Jazeera, Qatar, Turkey. We have to understand that Qatar and Turkey, while they are the mediators, while they helped the ceasefire deal, they want Hamas to stay in power. Israel cannot tolerate Hamas to stay in power after what happened in October 7. All the Arab countries don't want Hamas, so we have to make sure that Hamas will go out. You said rightly, it's a fragile ceasefire, but Israel is in a much better situation and we can turn things around. We need the support of the United States.
Can I put some allegations to you from people inside Gaza that Israel has also been accused of breaking the ceasefire by bombing areas? Is there any substance to that, would you say?
Yes, I said one thing. Israel said, and before, and it's very important to question because it's also connected to the situation in the north and the ceasefire with Lebanon. Before October 7, a big part of our national security strategy was, our 4 pillars was deterrence, early warning, defense, offense. But the 2 words that constitute our national security strategy was containment and defense, meaning quiet at any price. After October 7, we changed it. Now it's prevention and offense, meaning every time when we see an imminent threat against us, also in the north, until now 300 times we attacked in Lebanon, and the parties, UK, France, US, even the Lebanese army say that we are right, because every time when we see a violation, so all these allegations are when we see forces coming near our forces and make them dangerous, we attack. This is not a violation.
Mr. Nagel, can I ask for your opinion on the situation at present in the United Kingdom? We've seen Jewish people killed at a synagogue in Manchester. We've seen Jewish fans banned from travelling to this country on November the 6th. Maccabi Tel Aviv due to face Aston Villa. That's been banned after a local parliamentarian put a petition out.
I still hope the Prime Minister Starmer, again, we are not talking about him now, but I understood he said that it's a wrong decision and he will take actions in order to change it. I don't know if he took actions or not.
He hasn't yet.
We don't have too much time, but I hope that the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans will be part of this game. I hope that our, acting ambassador, Daniela Grodeski, that just replaced the ambassador, came to Israel, until our permanent ambassador will come, will be there. I'm not saying that Maccabi Tel Aviv will win. I know maybe, who knows, maybe they will win. But sport is something that you don't have to combine together with politics. So, and about the synagogue, I heard that the king came and paid a visit there. Look, Jews are being threatened all over the world today, and it's in US, in UK, in other places. It's because some of the governments are encouraging anti-Semitism. And people are hearing this coming, and they allow themselves to do things like this. Now, when I am in Manchester, I expect that the UK police and government will protect me. If you are in Israel, you can be sure that the IDF and the government of Israel will protect you. But I think that we want people to continue to come to the UK, to France, to US, to other places. We have to protect them.
Is Britain becoming a dangerous place for Jews?
Again, I don't want to say Britain,
Well, I want to talk about the situation in Britain. I have people on the show, Jewish campaigns all the time, who say it is.
It is. Again, but I didn't come here to call the Jewish people to come to Israel. Everyone that will come is welcomed. But people that want to live here, they must get from the British government and British authorities the full protection against terrorists like what happened in the synagogue. This is the minimum that you expect from a great country like UK. Now, I like to come to the UK. I don't feel threatened. But, you see, I have my kippah, it's religious. Unfortunately, today, when I go out, I take it off. This is allowed even to go to our religious because it's dangerous to go out with Jewish signs on you. You are trying not to retract tension if you go out. I don't think it's right. I used to go to in UK a lot around. Everyone was coming to me and blessing me. Today, the number of Muslims in UK. Now, I'll say something I'm not supposed maybe to say. It's not politically correct on a British TV, but, you know, I will allow myself to say so. I'm not sure that there is a solution today because, you know, when you allow immigration openly and people are coming, you can still decide to send them out. But when there are many, many years here and settle and have second generation, now you cannot. They're British citizens. They were born here. So I don't know how this Britain will look like 10 or 15 years from now.
So if you don't
so yes, it can become dangerous for Jewish to come to Britain. And I don't like it because I like Britain.
If you don't feel safe today,
I feel
if you have to remove your kippah today, what would it be like in 10 years' time?
I am afraid that it will be much worse. I'm afraid that the British citizens sometimes won't feel safe in their country because there are other countries in Europe that it's now majority of Muslims. The mayor is Muslims. So just assume, I don't know, assume you live in London and the mayor of London will be a Muslim and he will tell your children to come to school or your daughter to come to school with their head covered. You want it? You don't want it. No one in UK want it. And the way you go over, it can happen.
To be fair, we're not at a situation yet where anybody is asking anybody to wear head coverings. And it's also fair to point out, and if you look at the data, there has been also an increase in Islamophobic hate crimes as well. Nigel
I don't
Nelson,
like it also.
Yeah, that's good. Nigel Nelson, you've been sitting there patient. Do you have a question for Mr. Nagel?
Yeah, do you think that if we could actually get to a final resolution for Israel and Palestine, the two-state solution...
I don't know this solution.
Well, that Palestine would be a sovereign state sitting alongside Israel, which is part of the 20-point peace plan that Trump has come up with. But were that to happen, do you think the tensions that you've just described that you see happening in Britain would begin to fade away because we finally have some kind of settlement within the Middle East?
What you just mentioned is a common mistake. People think that so-called the Palestinian problem, when it will be solved, everything in the world will be solved. Now, believe me, sometimes when I give long presentations and I show the tensions between the superpowers, US, UK, China, Russia, leave out Israel, all the tensions will remain. Now, go back to the Palestinian problem. If you have enough time to talk, and we don't have 2 hours to talk, I can show you that there is no Palestinian problem. Some people are making it in order to gain politics. Now, even in the 20 points of Trump, you have to read it very carefully. There is nothing there saying a Palestinian state. Believe me, if there was a Palestinian state,
about Palestinian statehood.
The state about something like entity that will lead in the future to some kind of Palestinian statehood. When I was National Security Advisor, I remember that John Kerry, the Minister of State of US, came and he talked with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and and Prime Minister Netanyahu explained him what he meant when he said two states to two countries. People forget the two countries, always say two-state solution. There is nothing like two-state solution. There was something that called two states for two countries. This also does not exist today. But what he meant is that Israel will control totally the security and the defense of this state. Okay. This state will have no authorities of defense, army, airport. They will be totally, they have total authority on civilian life, health, education, sewage, on the others. So John Kerry asked him, but this is not a state. This is a quasi-state. Okay. And Prime Minister, you can call it whatever you want. This is what I meant when I say two states for two states. The same is the sentence in the 20 points. If you go back before October 7, when there was almost normalization between Israel and Saudi, and the Saudis said you have to say something for the future, it was almost the same. In the future, when the consequences will allow you, there will be something with the statehood, but it's not a state. It's not two states, one's near the other.
Jacob, I have to interrupt you. Thank you so much for your time, because we have to cross. That's Jacob Nagel. Thank you very much for coming into the studio today. Appreciate your time. I sincerely do.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed being here. Thank you.
We have to cross the line to the House of Commons. The questions being asked about the China spy case. Let's go live now.
Of the China spy case. Yet the Sunday Times has since reported that the Home Secretary had, quotes, heard the case might collapse and had made representations to ensure the evidence put forward was as strong as possible. So I asked the Minister, when did the Home Secretary become aware the case might collapse? And what representations did the Home Secretary or her proxies make about the evidence, and to whom? Why has the House been told, including just now, that ministers and advisers were not involved in any way when the Sunday Times reports that they were? The Sunday Times also reported on a key meeting that took place on September the 1st, a meeting the government originally denied took place. Is it true Jonathan Powell chaired that meeting? Did the meeting discuss the CPS view that the evidence provided to that point was inadequate? And did that meeting discuss the possibility of providing further evidence in the case? And will the Minister agree to publish the minutes of all meetings in which this case was discussed and the correspondence relating to it? The Sunday Times reported that following the meeting, the Attorney General's office was asked to speak to the CPS. Did anyone from the AGO speak directly or indirectly to the CPS after that meeting? And can the Minister confirm that Dan Chugg from the Foreign Office was at that 1st September meeting? And can the Minister also confirm it was the same Dan Chugg who approached the Lord Speaker with a proposed deal in which the Chinese ambassador would be allowed back into Parliament? The Sunday Times also reported that the DNSA is understood to have acknowledged privately that the decision not to say China is an ongoing threat was political in nature. Is that true? Finally, the current government's position has been that all the evidence provided related to the last government's policy, but we now know that is categorically not true. We know from Matt Collins' third statement of August this year, in paragraph 8, that he copied and pasted from the Labour manifesto, and he stressed the importance the current government attaches to a positive relationship with China, weakening the evidence compared to 2023 and bringing in current government policy, contrary to what we have been told in recent weeks. So, why has the government been providing this House with inaccurate information, and why did ministers know what the CPS wanted but refused to give it to them?
Mr. Speaker, with great respect, a lot of what has just been said doesn't actually relate to the question that was initially asked by the Shadow Home Secretary. And I have to say, the opposition's position is confusing. They initially criticised the government for intervening. Then, when it became... I will answer the question. I am answering the question. I think it is important that on these matters of national security that we try and debate these things in a reasonable and sensible way. That is the approach that this government will seek to take. If members opposite...
I think we've had enough.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The opposition's position is confusing. They initially criticised the government for intervening. Then, when it became absolutely clear that we hadn't done that, they criticised us for not intervening. They asked for greater transparency, and then when we provided it, they accused the government wrongly of hanging people out to dry. And given that this urgent question related to the activities of the Home Office, I'm not at all clear why the Shadow Home Secretary thinks it's appropriate, given accusations that have been made previously about hanging officials out to dry, to name an official in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. How does that relate to the urgent question that was asked? Now, I do wonder, Mr. Speaker,
Sorry, I think I need to help a little bit. It is in order to mention another department. You can't ring fence it without other people. I'm sorry, it might not be comfortable, but the fact is the question's being asked that is within order, and that's what matters. Minister.
I'm grateful to you, Mr. Speaker, for your guidance. I'm simply pointing out to the Shadow Home Secretary that members opposite had previously criticised ministers and the government, to use their words, for hanging out to dry officials, and the Shadow Home Secretary has just named twice an official from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. I do wonder...
Is it true? Sorry. I've said to this side, I don't need chipping in. I certainly don't need it starting at this way and all along the bench, Minister.
I do wonder whether at any point the Shadow Home Secretary and certain members, not all of them, but certain members opposite, have considered the need for some humility to acknowledge their part, that these activities took place on their watch when they were in government and under the legislation of the time. Now,
Sorry. Mr. Phil, you've had the benefit of an urgent question. I've had the benefit, some might say, of listening to you. In which case, I want you to have the benefit of listening to the Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Shadow Home Secretary would be well advised to listen to the points that are being made. I'm seeking to respond to the questions that he and other Right Honourable and Honourable members have raised, and I'm doing that in good faith, and I'd be grateful for the opportunity to do that. Now, I remind the Shadow Home Secretary that we're only here today because the previous Conservative government didn't move quick enough to fix the glaring holes that existed within our national security laws. The charges in this case, as is well known, I hope, were brought under the Official Secrets Act of 1911. This antiquated legislation was drawn up before the First World War. It's why the party opposite began reviewing the legislation in 2015, because it was widely known that it was not fit for purpose. But it took 8 years to introduce the 2023 National Security Act. Now, fortunately, the law has now been updated with cross-party support, but not in time to protect our Parliament from Chinese espionage. Now, if the party opposite had acted faster and the National Security Act had been in place when these alleged offences happened, the prosecution would likely have proceeded. And the Right Honourable Gentleman and members opposite...
Sorry. Look, I'm trying really hard, and people in positions should know better. Minister.
Let me make this point crystal clear, Mr. Speaker. No member of this government, nor any special advisor, was in any way involved.
There you go, a terse exchange there between the Conservatives and Labour over the China spy scandal. A quick minute to wrap up this hour. Back in the studio here with GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Nigel, this is a tortuously complicated case. The only thing that really matters to the general public is, does the buck stop with the Prime Minister, and could Sir Keir Starmer get the old chop-chop?
Yes, and that's absolutely the crux of the case. Everyone at the moment is blaming each other. Keir Starmer is adamant that the government didn't interfere in an independent judicial process. The Security Minister, Dan Jarvis, has just repeated that in the House of Commons. If that turns out to be untrue, both of them would end up having to go. I can't believe that Keir Starmer would make that statement if it wasn't true.
But that could That could be the
bottom line is if you lie to Parliament, you're off.
But in the meantime, it's likely some junior minister might get thrown under the bus and nothing more will be seen here.
No, because, I mean, what both Dan Jarvis just said and what Keir Starmer said in Prime Minister's Questions last week was that no minister was involved in any of the decision-making. In fact, the government hadn't been involved in that at all. So the collapse of the trial is not down to them. That is their claim.
But it is baked into the Labour Party manifesto to be convivial towards China. Are they compromised?
Well, I mean, yes, it is, but it doesn't mean that a spy case wouldn't go ahead. And this story's got a long time to run when we find out the actual reason.
OK, thank you very much, Nigel. Now, still to come, Sadiq Khan is accused of being part of a cover-up into allegations of rape gangs in London. I'll be joined by Susan Hall, who asked the questions of Mr Khan now as the scandal grows. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Road users on the A9 southbound at Broxton should approach with caution due to a stranded vehicle. Meanwhile, the A38 eastbound between the A382 and A380 in Devon has one lane shut following a collision. York's A64 westbound experiences single-lane closures due to a broken-down vehicle, expected to clear by 4:15 this afternoon. In Surrey, the M25 clockwise at junction 14 has a lane closure due to a collision, expected to clear by 6:45 this evening. And on the trains, there is no service on the Gatwick Express, and Greater Anglia faces major disruption between Broxbourne and Stratford, London. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very, very easy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you and a happy Monday. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on today's action-packed show.
So are you saying we haven't got the same sort of gangs that are in Rotherham, Bradford and lots of other places in the country?
Just for a misunderstanding, what does she mean by that?
You know full well what I mean by that.
Campaigners for sexual abuse survivors have sensationally accused London Mayor Sadiq Khan of being part of a cover-up into allegations of rape gangs in London. I'll be joined by Susan Hall and also by GB News reporter Charlie Peters.
and case studies assessed by the police inspectorate have all the hallmarks of grooming gang abuse in London.
And GB News has obtained a copy of the book that could bring down Prince Andrew. The posthumous autobiography of his teenage sex accuser, Virginia Giuffre, is not on sale publicly until tomorrow, but we can bring you an early inside peek, the scoop on the sordid and contested tale. And a Nigerian immigrant who pretended to be a female NHS worker called Joyce has dodged jail. The fraudster worked in Chester A&E for 2 entire months, where he washed and even dressed patients. And when Brits are jailed for Facebook posts, is this yet another example of two-tier justice? And an electrifying new poll has shown that astonishing 60% of Brits view Keir Starmer as robotic, with a mere 17% describing the PM as human. They call Theresa May the Maybot. Has she been outmoded by a new model? Say hello to the Robo-Keir. And any moment now, you can see live pictures on your screen there from the White House. We're expecting to hear from Donald Trump as he meets another world leader into that world-famous doorway. This time, it's the turn of the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. That's all coming on today's show. Welcome to the show. As we just said there, any moment now, we're expecting the President Donald Trump, US President Donald Trump, to meet with the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, as he's the latest world leader to go through those hallowed doors. Anything can happen, stay tuned. But now, let's get the latest on UK politics. Let's start with this one. Labour ministers have tried to create a new legal definition of Islamophobia in a bid to stem rising numbers of what they say are hate crimes against Muslims. But Tories have warned that redefining the term could have a detrimental effect on free speech, alongside hindering criticism of Islamist extremism. Now, take a look at what MP for the Conservatives Nick Timothy had to say earlier.
Offence of blasphemy in our law. The right to freedom of expression, if it is a right worth having, must include the right to express views that offend, shock, or disturb. This is, I believe, the correct interpretation of the law, and I've written to the College of Policing and the Crown Prosecution Service to ask them to change their guidance accordingly.
OK, we're joining us now in the studio is GB News political editor Chris Hope, and also today our senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Chris, before we get into British politics, I believe you've got a breaking news story for us.
Yes, and big news here, Martin. You remember, of course, how Graham Linehan, this Irish comedian now living in America, was arrested by some police at Heathrow Airport wielding machine guns over his remarks he made on X, on Twitter. It prompted a huge row here in the UK and in the States about the issue here, but why can't you say what you like on Twitter, particularly if you're an Irish person living in America, being arrested here? Well, this moment we can break the news on GB News that the police have dropped the probe into Mr Linehan over these 3 gender-critical tweets. An email to Graham Linehan's lawyers this morning, a detective wrote this: "I'm writing to inform you that following a review of the evidence by the CPS, it's been determined that no further action will be taken in this matter. This means that no charges will be brought against Graham Linehan in relation to this allegation. Please note this decision may be reconsidered if further evidence or information comes to light." Now, that comes after last week Western magistrates ordered that all of Mr Linehan's bail conditions should be dropped after an application by the Free Speech Union lawyers, that campaign group. And just finally, from Graham Linehan, we have a comment here from him to GB News. They say this: "The police informed his lawyers that he faced no further action. After hearing to get his bail conditions lifted, the CBS have dropped the case. With the aid of the Free Speech Union," he says, "he still aims to hold the police accountable for what is only the latest attempt to silence and suppress gender-critical voices on behalf of dangerous and disturbed men," he says. So very, very big news there, because that cut right to the top of the American administration. Graham Linehan, the charges against him will not go any further.
This is a case that went around the world and back, and J.D. Vance has been very outspoken about the death of free speech as he sees it in the United Kingdom. The notion that anybody saying anything unsavoury in the eyes of the British authorities, the British police, the British government on American soil could come back and get this kind of treatment, to be greeted by armed police officers for a tweet was simply shameful and ridiculous, many people felt. And are we finally, do you think, is the government finally getting the message Chris Sober, about they should be policing the streets and not tweets. This is a huge breakthrough for Graham Linehan and for free speech. And may I say as well, the Free Speech Union, they're on a complete roll.
Well, they are. It's not the government, of course. The CPS and the police are separate to that, and charging choices are made separate to the government. But no question, it does seem to reset where we are with free speech. Free speech is set often by courts. In the public opinion, it seems here that it's a real win for free speech.
That's a huge story. Let's get on to that one we just mentioned there. Nick Timothy, this redefinition of Islamophobia. Talking about free speech, a lot of people feel that this has been a sinister clampdown on free speech to give special dispensation and protection to the Muslim faith. It goes against what we stand for in this country. Why should anybody be off limits for ridicule or open criticism? That's the point of free speech. Many people felt this was the beginning of a backdoor blasphemy law. It appears now the Labour Party might be backing down on this.
Well, the government won't comment on that. They're not going anywhere near the guidelines. We are waiting for this definition to be produced by Dominic Grieve, or Sir Dominic Grieve, the former Conservative...
What's taking them so long? What are they trying to hide?
Well, I'm not in the group, Martin, doing it. I simply
Get
say
out
they are
open.
Yeah, well, they are.
Judge.
He's taking time to go through it and get this balance right. Some would say, why should a faith group have any protection from his speech? Of course, you can't be racist and etc. But you're certainly protecting a faith group. People insult the Church of England all the time in this country. Why can't that apply to Islamophobia? But clearly, Nick Timothy believes there's a difference between anti-Semitism and agreeing on Islamophobia, and that's where we need to get to, because that's the concern where there is.
And part of the huge furore around this reintroduction, redefinition of Islamophobia is that even the phrase Muslim rape gangs would be Islamophobic. If you can't say the truth, you're not giving protection, you're giving cover. And if you give cover, it can make things worse. And really, do we believe at this moment in time, well, we're having Netanyahu's advisor in the studio saying he feels unsafe to wear his kippah in the streets in London, Jewish people leaving the country. Is it really the wisest thing to be giving what some people perceive to be extra cover to Muslims?
Well, the concern could be it would chill down any kind of criticisms of issues around the Muslim faith. Notably, we saw the history of the Grooming gang scandal. Would authorities have been less keen to even highlight, even if it took a while for that to come out of the reporting of our colleagues here?
Nigel Nelson, let's bring you in on both these stories. First of all, common sense has finally prevailed in the Graham Linehan case. It was absurd. Yeah. He was roughed up by machine gun toting coppers at
I think it was.
I think tweeting something.
That's right. I think that anyone who read his tweets would have seen that they were jokes. You might argue they were bad taste jokes, but they were certainly jokes.
Who cares? You're allowed to make bad taste jokes, just about.
But but technically, I can see that the police could see that there was initial evidence that an offence had been committed. They arrested him. They've decided not to go ahead, or the CPS have decided not to go ahead with any charges. That is the right decision.
Can we finally see an end to this nonsense where people's hurty feelings becomes a crime? It's a waste of police time. We're going backwards. And honestly, in modern Britain, don't we have more to worry about than the police combing through social media?
Well, I mean, in this particular case, I think that this is the final result, which is the best result you could have. But you can't criticise the police for following the guidelines that they've got to. There was some suggestion that Graham Linehan had broken the law. It's been decided that he hasn't. That is a good result.
Let's talk about this redefinition of Islamophobia quickly, if we could. They've bitten off more they can chew. We don't need it. They shouldn't be there. It's a complete and utter waste of government time.
We do need it.
Why?
We have a definition of anti-Semitism. It's an international definition. It is used by the police. It's used by the government. What we need to try and do is get to a similar definition of Islamophobia. The problem is finding the right form of words, as Chopper was just talking about, to make sure it doesn't infringe on free speech. That you are able to criticise the religion, but it prevents hate speech. It has been difficult to find the words.
Who defines hate speech? People can say something's hate speech, but they're just offended. People that Graham Linehan made tweets, people said they were offended by it. He got nicked. That's the point. If you give extra leverage, people will use it
nicked in a case abandoned.
Ways.
Nicked in a case abandoned. But if you have a definition of anti-Semitism which people can largely accept, there are bits of that I find a bit difficult. But anyway, that you can largely accept. Why should you not strive to get a definition of Islamophobia?
Well, because quite simply, in its present form, the phrase Muslim rape gangs is Islamophobic.
No, it would not be. It would not be. The whole thing is that if you're making a simple description like that, that's exactly the kind of things that you wouldn't want an Islamophobia law to outlaw. And it wouldn't. And the whole point is it's difficult finding...
Statements of facts might be offensive. They can't be illegal.
No, well, that's what I mean about it. That would be a fact. To say that would be a fact. What the problem with the wording is to make sure that you can criticise the religion of Islam without criticising Muslims.
OK, well, we'll agree to disagree on that one. Chris Hope, it's been kicking off, meanwhile, in Reform HQ in Kent. A leaked video is out there. Tell us about it.
It does matter this. So the leader of the council in Kent is Linda Kemp-Curran, and she is aware that Kent is seen as the kind of example of how Reform might behave, having real power. And of course, it's Nigel Farage's home council, but a leaked video from a Zoom call was given to The Guardian. Of course, not a friend of Reform UK, but no newspaper or broadcasters, of course. And it's gone viral. Here's a glimpse of what was said.
Now, because I'm not a dictator or an autocrat, I like feedback, I like to discuss, I like to hear what everybody thinks. However, when it comes to making the really big decisions, and I'm afraid LGR is one of those really big decisions, sometimes I will make a decision that might not be liked by everybody in the group. But I'm afraid you just because I am the democratically elected leader, and on LGR, I've made a decision.
There you are, Martin. I mean, the contention there is the leaders are saying we want to not increase council tax by 5% next April. Many councils are going to do that. But as a result of that being leaked, 4 individuals have been suspended. Paul Thomas, Oliver Bradshaw, Bill Barrett, Maxine Fothergill all had the whip suspended by Reform as they investigate bringing the party in disrepute. The Labour are piling in, saying they're fighting like rats in a sack. And the Lib Dems say this: Reform meeting is starting to sound more like an episode of The Traitors, they say. All that's missing is Claudia Winkleman to appear and ask who they're going to banish next. So that just shows, I think, that element of Reform being tested on how they spend their time, spend taxpayers' money. Of course, you know, she's trying to be tough on increasing council tax bills, but there we have it.
I've met Linda, and I think she did a first interview on here. I think she's a no-nonsense sort of person that put the fear of God into you. And don't we need more people like that in politics? And here's what I would say to you.
That's what Reform would say, certainly.
Here's what I would say to you. Why is anybody from a party leaking videos to The Guardian? They're clearly not a friend of the party. Who's in charge of the leak? And surely it's the right thing to do to clamp down on leaks and you know...
Well, perhaps the answer is here not to...
professional behaviour.
Yeah, not to work from home. Don't have Zoom meetings. Have them in a room. If you can't turn up, you can't vote. Want to go back to the old-fashioned way before COVID, Martin?
Nigel Nelson, people swear all the time in politics. Crikey, if they had the microphones open in this place, you know, it happens all the time. Politicians can be fruity. They can go off-piste. You know, isn't this just how ordinary people will talk? Who cares?
Well, it might be. Can I just declare an interest? Kent County Council is my council. I'm one of the people who will face their 5% rise in council tax if it goes ahead. Yes, this was a meeting that was meant to be private. It got leaked. I'm rather pleased it did get leaked because it gave us an insight into how Reform are running Kent County Council.
Well, let's have a video then of a Labour council meeting. You don't think that like idiotic and things that get said on any
I know idiotic things get said, and I'm perfectly happy for people to actually leak things like that if it shows up what is actually going on internally. That's what this did in this case. What it is showing is that Kent County Council is an absolute chaos under our new Reform administration, and the question people have to ask themselves is this what it would be like if they were in government?
Let's talk about a poll out today. I just think politicians fall out all the time like this. I think it's probably completely normal. The only thing that they've got wrong here is that someone's leaked it out to their political enemies.
But Reform is different because they've come from nowhere in a year to run big 10 of our county councils. That's why they're being tested more than normal.
And we're going to have 4 long years of this.
Yeah, fine.
It's going to be merciless because I think that the media are going to do anything they can to try and stop Reform getting anywhere near number 10. I digress. There's a very funny poll out today. I think it's funny. I mean, number 10 probably won't. And they asked the Great British public, polling by Maureen Common and Grayling, they asked the British public if they felt politicians were more robotic than human. And you remember the Maybot? Who can forget the Maybot? Well, now we might have a replacement model. It's called RoboKeir. There we go. RoboKeir. 60% of the British public felt Sir Keir Starmer was more robotic than human. Just 17% of voters refer to him as having human traits.
Yes.
Now, Chris, this is a bit of fun, but it's also serious. We hear all the time, there's another RoboKeir, we hear all the time that the British public find it hard to connect with Sir Keir Starmer. He's not a people's man. Is this a problem?
Those, of course, are AI images for those watching. But yes, I mean, he is somebody...
You think that might be real?
Well, I'm going to say it. That's all I'll say. He is privately quite a funny guy. He does like a bit of a laugh. He tends to, when he's got his game face on, when he's doing his TV stuff, he tends to maybe be a bit more formal, but that's often the way with people of a certain age. Maybe younger individuals are more relaxed on camera. I think it's just how he is. I mean, he's trying to do his best by the country. I think there's been a problem, a criticism in the past that he's a bit of a kind of judge's lawyer, not a jury lawyer, likes the kind of desiccated, dry arguments with a judge, but is less good at convincing an audience. But I think he's getting better. I think his party conference speech last month was one of the best I've seen from him.
Nigel Nelson, it could have been worse. It could be Rachel Reeves. In this poll, she scored even less on the humanity scale than Sir Keir Starmer. Only 16% of British voters felt that Rachel Reeves is human.
Well, at least that she didn't come across as Robo-Rach, which is something which is quite good. I think that Chopper is quite right there. Keir Starmer in private is actually very funny. He's great company, but when he gets out in public, he becomes incredibly cautious. So every word is measured. Even then, he gets some things wrong, like the Island of Strangers in his speech. So that's the Keir Starmer the public sees. It is a bit robotic. Theresa May was terribly shy in private, and as a result of that, that made her a bit sort of Maybotish.
Just want to read out a very funny comment here. I had these pictures at the top of the hour in the 3 o'clock. And straight away, when I said RoboKeir, Michael on Twitter here has commented saying, as Keir Starmer is no Robocop, as in your picture now, Martin, he's more of a Wally. You get it, Wally? Someone's even done that. Look, there we go. So this is Sir Keir Starmer as Wally, of course, a lonely automaton that went around a ravaged planet. It's almost like the metaphor is ringing true.
But he would say none of this matters. It's all about getting people's services better and improving people's lots. Yeah, how he presents himself is funny, but it's not how he judges himself.
Is it important, though, or is it a problem? For example, in Yorkshire, 70% of voters don't see Sir Keir Starmer as human. They see him as robotic. And I keep saying this is a bit of fun, but actually having that human connection. You talk to me all the time about the Labour Party haven't figured out yet what's their story, why are people going to buy into the emotional aspect of it rather than just being like a government red and
not being the Tories basically. But they define themselves against the Reform Party and now against Brexit, it seems, with these attacks on the Brexit, the economy, and also for the small boats crisis. So it's all very well saying what you're not, but what are you is the unanswered question.
And the final point here, Nigel Farage scored 41% human versus 17% robotic. He was the least robotic, but still only 41% human. Maybe politicians are just all seen as robots. Can identify with any of them. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Superb. Now, don't forget, any moment now, we're expecting to hear from Donald Trump live as he meets the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. You can see there that infamous door. Politicians from around the world in the beast, awaiting their turn on the naughty step in the White House. You can see there the Australian flag and the US flag as Anthony Albanese is the latest to go into the lair. This is GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray,
are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 4:23 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. And let's cross live now to Washington, where President Donald J. Trump is presently meeting with the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. They just, I believe, Anthony Albanese arrived a short moment ago. There's the beast. You can see the beast with the US flag and the Australian flag. And here comes Mr. Albanese out of the beast, shaking hands with the beast. And he's about to go inside the beast's lair, the White House. Anthony Albanese, after winding down on tariffs. Australia could be hammered by tariffs from America. Hot on the topic, of course, will be the fact that Mr. Albanese recognised the state of Palestine back in September. That went down very badly with Donald Trump. Albanese will be hoping he doesn't get the full Zelensky treatment. Zelensky version 1, of course. He'll be hoping he gets out of there unscathed, as they all do. Now, moving on now, that breaking news story. The Metropolitan Police have dropped a probe into the comedian Graham Linehan over 3 gender-critical tweets. We can now speak with the barrister and the writer and the free speech champion, Stephen Barrett. Stephen, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. We were due to talk about an immigrant impersonating a woman in an NHS hospital. More of that in a moment. Can I get your immediate reaction to what you must be seeing surely as a huge victory for free speech?
Well, it is a victory, but the process is the punishment. And I think there are very serious questions for the Metropolitan Police now, and I think we must ask them, and they must be held to account. And I think the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, needs to look into this. And if she won't, then I hope the Constitution works and her shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, looks into this and demands answers for why the police were abused in this way, why bail conditions, which from the very beginning looked to me to be absolutely draconic and ridiculous, had to be challenged in court. But I don't know if your listeners or viewers know this, Martin, but when Graham Linehan had to take the police to court in order to get out of these ridiculous bail conditions, they didn't even fight it. They didn't even turn up. So they must have known that the conditions were draconic and abusive. And the Met has to really ask itself what it has become. I think we have to ask ourselves what each of our police forces has become. Every single one of them seems to have a brainwashed chief constable who just spouts woke mantras and doesn't seem to be terribly interested in basic policing, and is much more interested in thought policing and controlling ideas and arresting people for wrongthink. And I think we really have to question what the College of Policing has done, where these people have come from, and whether we just go back to an old style recruitment method of working their way up from the beat, which seemed to ensure that we got common sense, respectable chief constables. I mean, I struggle now to find a chief constable I actively respect. I think the Chief Constable of the Metropolitan Police is a complete and utter disgrace and should have resigned over any of the many scandals which have plagued him, but this is yet another abuse of power by the police.
Stephen Barrett, we continually ask ourselves the question, is this the end of this madness? But it never seems to end. Harry Miller took the Royal College of Policing to the Royal Court of Justice over non-crime hate incidents. They were meant to be dropped. That didn't happen. The Supreme Court ruled that a biological woman was a biological woman and not a man who pretended to be a woman. That should have been the end of that. It wasn't. Graham Linehan got arrested because of challenging what was already deemed to be British law. Will this ever end?
Not until we rip DEI out of the system. At the moment, everybody's self-interest. If you want power in this country, if you want wealth in this country, if you want success in this country, if you need bells, whistles, or just a house to live in, then you will comply with DEI. Promotion in the police is linked to DEI. Promotion in my profession, from barrister to KC, is linked to DEI. Promotion from my profession, from barrister to judge, is linked to DEI. Self-interest and the access to power is all now thoroughly dependent on DEI. In many ways, I mean, I'm the least hippie-ish rebel the world could have possibly imagined. I'm an extremely bookish, rule-abiding chap, but my rejection of DEI means that I must become an other person. I must be outed. I must be, cast into the utter darkness. And that's not because and I shouldn't even have to say this, but obviously I'm not racist. Just because you reject DEI doesn't make you a racist. But we have structurally built this system, and everybody, humans, one of the reasons to not be racist, by the way, is that humans are generally all awful unless they learn how to be good or to become kind. So there is no good or bad based on skin color. That's obviously stupid. But humans are largely self-interested. And so if you build a system of self-interest, there will be zealots who do believe in DEI, but they will be a tiny proportion of the population. Most people will just be going along with this because it's in their interest so to do. They either want the promotion, they don't want to lose the job, they don't want to cause hassle, they don't want to get dragged before HR. And that's what's going on. When the police do this, they're acting like the militant enforcers of DEI. They are politicized police. They are effectively a Stasi. They are enforcing the main, the official political narrative, which is that you will support DEI, which says that you have to lie and say that men can become women when they can't. Graham Linehan will not lie, and therefore he must be crushed. The state must crush him in some way. And anybody who will not lie, it's just like Big Brother. If you will not lie and say that you love Big Brother, you must go to room 101 until you will give in. And that's what we're going on. We have built an awful socialist country. It's nasty. It's incompetent. It doesn't work. It's going bankrupt. Could we please rip all these laws out, restore democracy, and go back to the old ways? It was much nicer then.
Well, Stephen Barrett, that was going to be my next question. We've seen over the other side of the pond, we've got Donald Trump, we've got J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance has been terribly concerned about the state of free speech all across Europe, but in particular in the United Kingdom. This case, of course, caught his eye. And we're a laughingstock in America when we hear about people like Lucy Connolly going to jail over an offensive tweet. Yeah, it was offensive, but it was just an opinion and quickly deleted. Graham Linehan having 5 coppers with machine guns turning up when it'd be a miracle to see a single copper if you got your car nicked or your house broken into. The point is, people feel this has gone too far. Is the only way now to overcome this a complete and utter change of political regime in the United Kingdom?
Yes, you effectively need to do two things, really. You need to fundamentally restructure your laws, because a lot of this is written into laws. We're a socialist state by law. And by the way, Churchill always said that no socialist state can exist without a political police force enforcing its will. So the fact that we got a socialist state was always going to lead to a political police force. They're all linked together. They're natural causes of each other. But you have to rip out and fundamentally restore a functioning liberty-based legal system, which we had with the common law, and we can easily get back to. It's not simplistic. It will require a lot of technical legal work, but it can be done without killing the country. You know, you don't want to delete the law against murder, or that would be a nasty weekend. But, you know, you can get rid of an awful lot of other types of laws. You need to do that. And then culturally, we all need to accept. We need to culturally value things like we're a free country. And you've got a right to say that. I don't agree with you. That's absolutely fine. We need to go back to the loser shaking the winner's hand at the end of a sports match or race. All of this needs to culturally come back.
Stephen Barrett, I want to quickly ask you, if I could, about Nick Timothy MP earlier on in Parliament was imploring the government to drop their redefinition of Islamophobia. I know we've spoken about this before. I wanted to get your take on that. Here we are today. We're finally seeming to reach a high watermark of the trans insanity, people being arrested for tweets. That's being dropped. Are you gravely concerned about a reintroduction, a redefinition of Islamophobia, particularly at the moment? Do we really need to be giving certain communities more protection from the law when they seem to be becoming even more emboldened in public life?
No, we certainly don't need blasphemy laws for any of our religions. And what's missed with the Islamism problem we have and the terrorism problem is all of the absolute mainstream Muslims. So I've mentored young people from poor backgrounds across Britain, and that's from almost everywhere geographically in England and Wales, and every type of group. And I can tell you, everybody's got mainstream kids who will succeed and do integrate and will do well. So although we have a problem with Islamist terrorism, particularly targeting our Jewish community at the moment, you know, mainstream Muslims do exist and are here in Britain. We obviously don't need to protect them from blasphemy. OK, they just don't need it. They're lovely people. They're already protected. You know, I can think of a friend who's currently chair of my local council. You know, he doesn't need special protection from blasphemy laws. That's complete nonsense. Nobody does, and they will just be used again by a political police force to enforce wrongthing. Look at it. It's not a joke now. Two-tier policing is real. They only police thoughts and thinking and ideas. And Churchill said that's what these authoritarians always do, and that's exactly what they're doing. I've said this countless times to you, Martin, but look at the pathetic sentences for paedophiles. Look at them. Admit that we basically let paedophiles off in this country. And that is absolutely sickening. It is maddening. It's what a socialistic state creates. We are socialism. It came on us slowly, and it kept lying and saying it wasn't. I'm definitely not socialism, but it is. And it's what President Trump's called nasty and incompetent.
OK, Stephen Barrett, we have to leave it there. 2 words you could never apply to you. Stephen Barrett, an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today with your immediate reaction there to the dropping of the charges in that huge case against Graham Linehan. Liberty and perhaps sanity restored. Lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including as Donald Trump meets Australian Anthony Albanese. Pictures there from a short while ago of the Australian Premier going through those hallowed doors into the White House. We're expecting to hear live from them both, but shortly inside the White House. What will happen in there? Anything can happen in there. That's the point. It's political theatre. That's simply unmissable. Stick with us for that, but first, here's your latest news headlines, and here's Katie Bowen.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 4:33. A palace source has told GB News that allegations against Prince Andrew should be examined in an appropriate way. The Metropolitan Police is actively looking into the allegations that he asked his taxpayer-funded bodyguard to dig the dirt on his sex accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Her posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, alleges his team tried to hire internet trolls to harass her. Amazon says it's fixed the original problem that caused a major internet outage this morning, but that a full recovery to all sites will take more time. More than 1,000 companies have been hit by the outage affecting Amazon's cloud system. Apps including Snapchat, Duolingo and even UK banks like Lloyds and Halifax have all been caught up in the chaos. Pizza Hut is to shut 68 restaurants after the company behind its UK venues fell into administration. The company has not disclosed how many workers will be impacted by the closures. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will travel to London to attend a meeting on Friday of the Coalition of the Willing. In a separate post on X, President Zelensky said that there will be many meetings and negotiations in Europe this week. And the Metropolitan Police have dropped a probe into comedian Graham Linehan over 3 gender-critical tweets. In an email to Mr Linehan's lawyers this morning, a Metropolitan Police detective said that following a review of the evidence by the Crown Prosecution Service, no further action will be taken in this matter. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Good afternoon, this is your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. There are plenty of heavy showers around today and there's more unsettled weather to come as we go through this week, particularly on Thursday. It could be very wet and windy, but for the time being we do have low pressure around the UK. In fact, we have a double low pressure system set up with low pressure towards the north and also towards the south. It's the one in the south that's been the driving force for the heavy thundery showers that many places across particularly England and Wales have been getting through today, and there are more of them to come as we go overnight, albeit they are going to ease a little bit, so some drier weather here and there. Clearer skies across parts of eastern Scotland, down into parts of northern England and perhaps some parts of central and southern England, and here temperatures could take a bit of a drop and there could be some fog around. Elsewhere staying relatively mild and some murky conditions with the cloudy wet weather at times as well. First thing tomorrow morning then, across much of Scotland away from the Far East, it's looking pretty cloudy, quite murky then, and also there will be some outbreaks of rain. Across Northern Ireland it's a similar story, some heavy showery bursts pushing in from the west, and across England and Wales, well yes, maybe some brightness at times, a bit more brightness than we'll have seen through today, but also a fair few showers around. Perhaps slightly fewer showers than through today, and they're not looking quite as intense, but nonetheless the odd heavy shower is still possible. But the winds also should be a little bit lighter than today, and with a greater chance of seeing some of that sunshine breaking through and those lighter winds, for many it is going to feel a little bit warmer perhaps, even though temperatures are still around average for the time of year. And do watch out as there will still be some showery bursts of rain around. More showery bursts of rain to come as we go through the evening, but it is going to turn a little bit dry as we go overnight Tuesday night into Wednesday. Wednesday perhaps looking like the driest day of the week for many, because by Thursday, well, that's when we could have some particularly wet and windy weather pushing its way in. So do watch out for that. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Drivers on the A9 southbound should be cautious due to a broken down vehicle at Broxton. The A40 is closed between St Clears West and Whitland West due to an incident. In York, the A64 westbound near the A19 and A1036 junctions is down to one lane. The A46 southbound in Lincolnshire is fully closed due to an accident. One lane of the M25 clockwise at junction 14 in Surrey is closed due to a collision. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast experiences disruption between Carlisle and Penrith North Lakes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Let's get straight to the House of Commons now. An urgent question has been asked about the ban on the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans.
Entitled to dictate who can participate in competitions, attend a football match or walk the streets for fear of threats or reprisals. Whatever your view on the events overseas, this is a fundamental principle that this government will fiercely defend. And let me be clear, this decision was not made in a vacuum. It's set against the backdrop of rising anti-Semitism here and across the world, and an attack on a synagogue in Manchester in which 2 innocent men were killed. It has a real-world impact on a community who already feel excluded and afraid. It is therefore completely legitimate to support the independence of the police to conduct that risk assessment and to question the conclusion that follows when it excludes the people at the heart of that risk. Following the decision last week, the government has been working with West Midlands Police and Birmingham City Council to support them to consider all the options available, and to tell us what resources are needed to manage the risks to ensure fans from both teams can attend safely. If the assessment is revised, the Safety Advisory Group will meet again to discuss options. In the last few days, I've spoken to Jewish community groups, sporting organisations, fan groups and Aston Villa Football Club to ensure we have the fullest picture possible. The Home Secretary and the Community Secretary have had extensive discussions with the police, local government and others. Ultimately, the law is clear that responsibility for this decision lies with local agencies. It is not for the government to assess the risks surrounding this football match, but we are clear that resources will not be the determining factor in whether Maccabi Tel Aviv fans can be admitted, and that this fundamental principle that nobody in our country will be excluded from participating in public life because of who they are must be upheld.
Joe Huddleston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Right Honourable Lady for those comments, because I'm sure most of us in this House will believe that the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from the upcoming Europa League game against Villa is the wrong one. It's also embarrassing and a disgrace. Have we really reached the point where we cannot welcome visitors from overseas to our second city because we cannot guarantee their safety on British streets, in British football grounds? This is not how modern Britain should present itself to the world. And some, astoundingly including some in this House, have claimed that the ban on Israeli fans is for their own safety. Safety that has been put at risk precisely because of the anger and hatred being whipped up by some of those very same people demanding a ban. Equating football fans with terrorists, for example. We cannot give in to this kind of rhetoric, and I hope the Minister will join me in condemning it. Football and all sport has incredible potential to bring people together. It should not be used as a deliberate tool to divide. The UK has a great and hard-won reputation for hosting major international sporting events. Banning an entire fan base sends the wrong signal and may jeopardise our ability to host such events in the future. And how disappointing is this decision to the residents of Birmingham, who only 3 years ago welcomed people from around the world to the Commonwealth Games, which showcased Birmingham and the West Midlands at its diverse, vibrant and hospitable best. We therefore call on the government to intervene and get this ban reversed. But Aston Villa and the Safety Advisory Group may only be able to do so with guarantees of additional support from the government. So can the Minister confirm what additional resources may be provided and who will pay for these additional resources? Can she confirm when the Home Office and DCMS were first made aware of the intent of the Safety Advisory Group to make this obviously controversial decision? And is she confident that they talked to all the right people before making the decision? And if the decision is reversed, what practical steps will be taken to ensure the safety of all fans and residents? And while many football teams have some undesirable supporters intent on causing trouble, let's recognise the vast majority of fans want nothing more than to enjoy a good game of football. And if we are to truly wrap our arms around the Jewish community, as the Prime Minister promised following the attack on the synagogue in Manchester, does the Minister agree we need to take action and not just spout warm words? Finally, is the Minister confident that this incident will not jeopardise our ability to host major international sporting events in the future? Thank you.
Well, first of all, can I thank him for bringing this urgent question to the House? I know it's of concern to so many parliamentarians and so many people outside of this place. And can I thank him for the tone that he's adopted? I've watched with dismay as there have been people in this debate who've sought to use this moment to heighten tensions. And I want to commend him for the way that he's conducted himself and his part in this. He asked a particularly important question about who will pay today, across government, we are united. The Home Secretary, myself, the Chancellor, the Prime Minister and the Community Secretary are united in saying that we will find the resources that need to be made available once the West Midlands Police has come forward with the risk assessment, and we'll work with as one government to make sure that those resources are forthcoming because of the important principle, fundamental principle that is at stake about what sort of country we are. He asked if I was confident that the decision was made based on...
That's Lisa and Andy there in the House of Parliament. Let's cross live now to the White House, where Donald Trump is with the Australian Premier Anthony Albanese.
The camera just hit the mirror. I just moved it up here special from the vaults, and the first thing that happens, the camera hits it. Hard to believe, isn't it? Hard to believe, but these are the problems in life. So we're going to be here to talk about lots of different things, and we might take a few questions before, but we are discussing critical minerals and rare earths, and we're going to be signing an agreement that's been negotiated over a period of 4 or 5 months. And it was sort of good timing that we got it done just in time for the visit. And we worked together very much on rare earths, critical minerals, and lots of other things. And we've had a very good relationship. We've been working on that for quite a while. In about a year from now, we'll have so much critical mineral and rare earths that you won't know what to do with them. They'll be worth about $2. But in the meantime, we're working with Australia and other countries. They're working with us too, but other countries also on that. But we're really working on anything having to do with military protection, military ships, vehicles, guns, ammunition, everything, the whole thing. We've been long-time allies, and I would say there's never been anybody better. We fought wars together. We never had any doubts, and it's a great honor to have you as my friend. It's a great honor to have you in the United States of America. Please, would you like to say something?
Well, thank you so much, Mr. President, for the invitation here to the White House and for showing us around the improved Oval Office, and for what you're doing around here as well, and for the great honour as well of my delegation saying just across the road we could have walked, but they didn't let us. We drove all of 20 metres there from Blair House, but it's a great honour to be able to stay there. We are great friends and we're great allies, and this is a relationship that's been forged in the battlefields of the world. We have stood side by side for freedom and democracy, and congratulations, I must say, Mr. President, on the work that you've done with the Middle East. It's an extraordinary achievement. And on defence, we've already had a discussion about taking it to the next level. Our defence and security partnership with AUKUS is so important for us, and I thank you for the support that the administration are giving as well. You've had the Chief of the Navy here as well, which will play obviously a very critical role with the subs and increasing the security for the region and the world. And our economic relationship is so important. The US has a trade surplus with Australia, as you know, and we can continue to take what is every opportunity to improve the relationship even further and make it even stronger. And today's agreement on critical minerals and rare earths is just taking it to the next level, seizing those opportunities which are before us to take our relationship to that next level. And it's been fantastic, the contact that we've had together, the friendship that we've developed. And Australians love America, and I think Americans kind of like Australia too.
That's true, we do.
And as we go forward, I think that today will be seen as a really significant day in our relationship. So I thank you very much, Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much, Anthony. It's an honor to sign this, and we'll do it now. And then we'll take some questions. Some good ones, I think. Okay.
this is a $8.5 billion pipeline that we have ready to go.
That's right. It's all ready to go.
Just getting started.
And we're doing a real job on rare earth and many other things. Perhaps I could ask John to say a few words, and then we'll exchange papers. But just how are we doing on your naval purchases and all of the submarines that we're working on with Australia? How's that going?
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, Australia is a very important ally of ours in the Indo-Pacific and in every battle. They've fought with us since World War I and have always been side by side. The facility that they're building, Surf West, is critical and very important to our ability to project power in the Indo-Pacific and work with our allies. So we're working very closely. I think what we're really trying to do is take the original AUKUS framework and improve it for all three parties and make it better and clarify some of the ambiguity that was in the prior agreement. So it should be a win-win for everybody, sir.
And the submarines that we're building for Australia are starting to really move along, right? The process is getting very exciting, isn't it?
We're getting better.
That's good. Very good.
It's going to be great.
Thank you very much. Maybe we'll hold this up. Okay.
Here we go.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President. The AUKUS submarine pact, the AUKUS defence pact that the Prime Minister just mentioned, it is a critical issue for Australia.
Yes.
You haven't really spoken much about it publicly. It was a deal that was done under Joe Biden to sell submarines to Australia at a time when you're not really making enough for your own needs. So can you tell us, have you gotten across the details of the deal? Do you support it, and will you honour it?
It was made a while ago, and nobody did anything about it, and it was going too slowly. We do actually have a lot of submarines. We have the best submarines in the world, anywhere in the world, and we're building a few more currently under construction. And now we're starting, we have it all set. With Anthony, we've worked on this long and hard, and we're starting that process right now, and I think it's really moving along very rapidly, very well.
But if the rate of submarine production doesn't continue, how can you guarantee Australia will get the boat?
Oh, it's getting, oh no, they're getting.
Mr. President, at least 32 people have been killed in those.
Excuse me, you're next.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
China's bad behavior has really only gotten worse since the AUKUS partnership was formed. With that in mind, is the door open for Australia to get additional nuclear-powered submarines or other military capabilities not already in the deal?
I think China's been very respectful of us. They're paying tremendous amounts of money to us as in the form of tariffs. As you know, they're paying 55%. That's a lot of money. They never were paying anything over years and years and years. But they were like anybody else. A lot of countries took advantage of the U.S. They're not taking advantage anymore. No, China's paying 55% and a potential 155% come November 1st unless we make a deal. And I'm meeting with President Xi. We have a very good relationship. We're going to be meeting in South Korea in a couple of weeks. And we'll see what we can do. We have a very good relationship with China, but you know, it's been probably a little bit like your relationship with China. They try and take advantage, but most countries do. I mean, I can say the European Union took advantage, but not anymore. We worked out a very fair trade deal. Japan, we worked out a very fair deal. South Korea, where I'll be meeting President Xi, we worked out a very fair deal. And I expect we'll probably work out a very fair deal with President Xi of China. So most of you will be with us. It's going to be very exciting. And I think we're going to work out something that's good for both countries.
Are you at least interested in expediting the nuclear-powered subs to Australia?
Well, we are doing that, yeah. We're doing that. We have them moving very, very quickly.
Mr. President, I don't think you've ever been to Australia. Have you thought about coming to Australia and trying out some of the golf courses?
I would, and I actually have been to Australia, and I did play one of your great golf courses. They have great golf courses there, but I have been to Australia, actually.
Would you come again?
Oh, I would. In fact, I've been invited to go, and
Indeed.
I'll have to give it serious consideration. No, it's a real
Did
possibility.
the Prime Minister invite you today?
He did.
And perhaps we could time it, must be said, with the President's Cup that Australia hosts as well.
When is the President's Cup?
We'll organise it at a time suitable for you, Mr. President.
Please, in the back, please. Yeah, in the back, please.
Yeah, Mr. President, the Prime Minister mentioned that there's a trade imbalance that's very heavily in America's favour. Why does America slap such heavy tariffs on a friend and ally?
Well, we don't, yeah. Well, we do in some cases. We do in many cases because we've been treated unfairly. But actually, the tariffs are very light. The one thing is you buy a lot of airplanes, so that helps because you buy a lot of the beautiful Boeings, the best of the Boeings. Boeing, and by the way, Boeing is really doing well. They have lots of orders, and they're really doing a great job. They make a great plane. But Australia, because of its location, which is great, but one of the things dictated by that location is you have to order a lot of airplanes. So I guess we have that advantage. They need a lot of airplanes in Australia, and that gives us a little bit of an advantage.
Mr. President, your Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, in his Shangri-La speech in, I think it was May, warned about the potential likelihood or threat of President Xi ordering an invasion of Taiwan. 2027 is also the year that Fleet Base West is supposed to start rotating those US and UK submarines. Do you see AUKUS as a deterrent for China in the Indo-Pacific?
Yeah, I do. I think it is, but I don't think we're going to need it. I think we'll be just fine with China. China doesn't want to do that. First of all, the United States is the strongest military power in the world by far. It's not even close. Not even close. We have the best equipment. We have the best of everything, and nobody's going to mess with that. And I don't see that at all with President Xi. I think we're going to get along very well as it pertains to Taiwan and others. Now, that doesn't mean it's not the apple of his eye, because probably it is. But I don't see anything happening. We have a very good trade relationship. We're going to have a very good, I think, when we leave South Korea, it could be wrong, but I think we'll end up with a very strong trade deal. Both of us will be happy. No, I don't see that happening, no.
Given the trade surplus that the US enjoys with Australia, would you consider lifting the tariffs that you've imposed on Australia? And can you give us any details about the critical...
Yeah, well, the tariffs have been amazing because, tariffs have been really a reason that I was able to settle almost all of the, I've settled 8 wars in 8 months. Not bad. I have one more to go. It's Russia, Ukraine, and I think we'll get there, but it's turned out to be nasty because you have 2 leaders that truly hate each other, You can't have it all, right? They hate each other beyond all else, and it makes it actually a little bit difficult. But we try, of the 8 deals, I would say because of tariffs, 4 or 5 of them were settled. It's an amazing thing, the power of tariffs in terms of our country. But tariffs have always been used against us. We never use them against anywhere else. And now you have a president that for national security reasons and other reasons is using them. And we've become a very rich nation again and a very secure nation again. But we've also become a nation that used that power of tariffs and the power of trade to settle 5 of the 8 wars that I settled. I settled 8. I'm very proud of that. Nobody else has settled 1. I don't think there's been an American president that settled 1. I think there probably hasn't been outside of the 2 countries involved, or however many are at war. I don't think there's ever been an outside country that settled a war, period. So I settled 8 in 8 months. I'm proud of that. Now, in the meantime, I'm running a country that's right now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We were dead. A year and a half ago, we were a dead country. Now we're the hottest country in the world, economically and otherwise. So, but I will say this, Australia pays very low tariffs, very, very low tariffs. In fact, Australia pays among the lowest tariffs. Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, there's been concern in Australia that it's taken 9 months to get this meeting. Have you had any concerns with this administration, with its stance on Palestine, climate change, or even things the ambassador said about you in the past, the Australian ambassador?
I don't know anything about him. I mean, if he said bad, then maybe he'll like to apologize. I really don't know. Did an ambassador say something bad about him? Don't tell me. I don't. Where is he? Is he still working for you?
Yeah.
You said bad?
Before I took this position, Mr. President.
I don't like you either. I don't, and I probably never will. Go ahead. No, you went. Go ahead, behind you, President.
Mr. President, your Secretary of the Navy said there will be some clarifications around some ambiguities on AUKUS. Can you tell us?
Well, he'll get that taken care of. These are just minor details that he'll take care
Can I ask you specifically on?
John, you're going to get that taken care of, right?
Correct.
There shouldn't be any more clarifications because we're just going now full steam ahead building. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are you now satisfied with Australia's defence investment, or do you want Australia to invest more in defence?
Well, I'd always like more, but they have to do what they have to do. You know, you can only do so much. I think they've been great. They're building magnificent holding pads for the submarines. It's going to be expensive too. You know, you wouldn't believe the level of complexity, right, and how expensive it is. They're building tremendous docking because they have a lot of ships and a lot of things happening. And I think their military has been very strong, very, very strong. Over here, please.
Mr. President, on the war that you haven't solved yet, the Ukraine-Russia situation, have you now locked in a meeting? And can you explain, just a few weeks ago at UNGA, you said that Ukraine could possibly win the war and
well, they could.
Territory, but now
they could still win it. I don't think they will, but they could still win it. I never said they would win it. I said they could win. Anything can happen. You know, war is a very strange thing. A lot of bad things happen, a lot of good things happen. If you look at the Middle East, I would say prior to us hitting Iran so hard, we could have never made that deal because you would have had a dark cloud over the Middle East when we took out their nuclear capability, which was one of the great military maneuvers of all time. It was flawless. You saw that. Yeah. Those magnificent B-2s. I mean, that was a flawless move that was done by some very talented people, headed up by Pete and everybody else, and our great generals, and General in particular, Raisin Kane. We did a great job, and when that happened, everything was different, and we were able to get a deal. If we didn't do that, if it wasn't, you know, they wanted to do that for 22 years, Mr. Prime Minister. For 22 years, I had the pilots here, the B-2 pilots, and they came to the Oval Office, and I thought they deserved it. They flew 37 hours back and forth. We had 52 tankers up there. We had a lot of planes up there with them, but they were the primary plane. But we had a lot of planes, F-22s and F-35s and F-6. We had a lot of planes. But we had 52 tankers. Can you believe that? And it was just like a flawless mission. And when it was finished, the Middle East just opened up, amazing. And they've wanted to do it for 22 years. The pilots came up to me. They said, you know, for 22 years we practiced this maneuver. 3 times a year for 22 years, our predecessors and us. These are now young pilots, you know, but they're older now. Predecessors practiced it. And they said, we never had a president that would let us do it, but I let him do it. And it totally opened up the Middle East. It took the cloud over the, you know, we had a dark cloud over the Middle East, and now it's all, I mean, we have a little situation relatively with Hamas, and that will be taken care of very quickly if they don't straighten it out themselves, because they're in violation of their agreement.
On rare earth minerals, Australia is one of the only places in the world that processes rare earth minerals. Yeah. Could there be an agreement? China has 90% of the processing. Could there be an agreement over processing rare earth minerals with Australia?
Sure, yeah. That's what we're doing. It's part of the agreement.
Part of the agreement.
Can you say with certainty?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. Just, sorry.
Yeah.
On a follow-up on Taiwan, there are reports that you will come up, or China is pressuring you to not support independence for Taiwan in exchange for a trade deal.
Well, I'm not going to talk about that. What I'll talk about, you and I will have that discussion in a couple of weeks when I'm in South Korea with President Xi. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. I assume that's going to be one of the things, but I'm not going to talk about that now. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, you just alluded to the violence in the Middle East. What steps is the administration taking to maintain the ceasefire?
Well, a lot of steps, and right now it's in the hands of others. You know, we have 59 countries that agreed to the deal. We have a peace in the Middle East for the first time ever. We made a deal with Hamas that, you know, they're going to be very good, they're going to behave, they're going to be nice, and if they're not, we're going to go and we're going to eradicate them if we have to. They'll be eradicated, and they know that. So they went in, And I don't believe it was the leadership, but they had some rebellion in there among themselves, and they killed some people, a lot of people. But this is a violent group. You probably noticed over the last 100 years, this is a very violent group of people. And they got very rambunctious, and they did things that they shouldn't be doing. And if they keep doing it, then we're going to go in and straighten it out, and it'll happen very quickly and pretty violently, unfortunately.
Yeah, just following up on that question, when you say we are going to eradicate Hamas, who is we? Does that include American boots on the ground?
No, it won't be on the ground at all. We don't need to, because we have many countries, as you know, signed on to this deal. The way I view it, 59 countries, and unanimous. There's never been, nobody ever believed us. Countries that 4 months ago didn't like each other, and now they're all aligned together. I mean, we've had countries calling me when they saw some of the killing with Hamas, saying, we'd love to go in and take care of the situation ourselves. In addition, you have Israel would go in 2 minutes if I asked him to go in. I could tell him, go in and take care of it. But right now, we haven't said that. We're going to give it a little chance, and hopefully there will be a little less violence. But right now, they're violent people. Hamas has been very violent. But they don't have the backing of Iran anymore. They don't have the backing of really anybody anymore. They have to be good. And if they're not good, they'll be eradicated.
Were any innocent civilians killed in the Caribbean, Mr. President?
Not you.
Could the Prime Minister weigh in more on the processing?
Yeah. And can Australia expand the process of rare earths?
Absolutely we can, and we have the capacity to do so, and part of this deal is very specific, $8.5 billion pipeline. There'll be $1 billion contributed from Australia and the United States over the next 6 months with projects that are immediately available. There's 3 groups of projects, ones that are joint activities between Australia and the United States, such as Alcoa. Secondly is projects that will be US investment that the US will undertake in Australia, including processing, and then ones that Australia will undertake, some as well. One of them is Australia, the US and Japan as well. So what we're trying to do here is to take the opportunities which are there. Australia has had a view for some time, a bit similar to putting America first.
Right.
Our plan's called A Future Made in Australia, which is about not just digging things up and exporting them, but how do we make sure that we have across the supply chains with our friends being able to benefit, seize those opportunities. So we certainly see part of what this is about isn't just digging things up, it's also about processing, including the joint ventures between Australia and the United States.
Prime Minister, can the US and Australia really compete with China? Aren't we decades behind in terms of the development?
No, you've been reading the wrong newspapers. We're not decades. We are way ahead of China militarily, the United States. We're way ahead of them in every form of military, other than they're building a lot of ships, and we'll have that started. We'll be catching them on that.
When it comes to
but we will, when it comes to weaponry, when it comes to, I'll go, right now, AI. The big thing is AI. They're building more plants in this country than anybody ever imagined. We're going to have over $20 trillion of investment for this year, where the most we ever had was a tiny fraction of that. As an example, Biden, who's the worst president in the history of our country by far, by the way, but they were less than $1 trillion for 4 years. We're already now breaking $18 trillion of investment in 8 months. $18 trillion. No country in history has ever done that. We're way ahead of China in AI, and we're way ahead of China militarily from the standpoint of the sophisticated weapons. We have weapons that a lot of people don't even know about, and I got them started 4 years ago. I rebuilt the military 4 years ago, fortunately, because Biden didn't do anything but give a piece of it away to Afghanistan. Fortunately, as much as it sounded like it was a small part of what I built, but the Afghanistan giveaway was one of the worst. That was probably the most embarrassing day in the period in the history of our country. But we have the greatest military, we have the best equipment, we have the best manufacturers of equipment, we have the best weapons. When you look at our weapons, I've been talking a lot about our weapons. Everybody wants our weapons. It's great to be working with Anthony. It's great to be working with the people of Australia because they also, I mean, it's a smaller country, but you have done a fantastic job in weaponry and the kind of things that we do a lot of joint work together. Our militaries work very, very closely together. We've been really an amazing ally when you think of it, right? There's never been any games. We're strongly committed, and they're strongly committed. There are some games with other countries, but there haven't been games with Australia. Where do you come from?
I'm from Australia.
Who are you with?
The Sydney Morning Herald.
Nasty guy. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to ask a question.
All right, go ahead.
In your first term, you worked with two Australian Prime Ministers, Scott Morrison and Malcolm Turnbull, you might remember. Right. They were from same side of politics as you. Mr Albanese's different side. Can you tell us a bit more about what it's like to work with Mr Albanese compared to those two?
Well, I got along. I mean, that wouldn't be fair because, the man on my right has a big advantage. You know that, right? But I think he's doing a really good job, and we've had a very good relationship. I don't want to compare one with the other, but I'll tell you, they really have a great prime minister. Thank you. Okay, was that a good statement?
I'll use it in my ads in 28.
President Putin on Thursday, did you discuss his ongoing attacks on civilian areas in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Did you say cut it out? Did you say show an article of good faith to me?
I did. But as you know, most of the people dying are soldiers. The soldiers that are dying in Russia and Ukraine, it's unbelievable. 5,000 to 7,000 a week. Can you believe it? And I look at that and I say it's pretty amazing. But in addition to that, there are attacks on Kiev and some of the other places. And it's human lives, but the big number of human lives is soldiers that are being killed in the battlefield, anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000, sometimes more than that every single week. It's not even believable. It's a bloodbath. It's the worst since the Second World War, the worst number of people. And, it doesn't affect us in any way. We don't pay anything because now they pay us for the weapons that they get. The NATO is paying us for the weapons, as you know. It doesn't affect, I guess you could say that's a positive thing, they pay us, but I'm not interested in that. I did straighten it out. Biden gave them $350 billion. Can you believe it? And all they did is get deeper in. It's a shame. Gave them $350 billion. A lot of lives were lost. That's a war that would have never happened if I were president. But we do speak about that. I speak about all of the lives, but I do speak about the civilian lives. Yeah.
Done such an amazing job on the Ukrainian children who were abducted by Russia. Would you support Senator Lindsey Graham's bill to declare Russia a terrorist state? And you have within your power, you're the most powerful man on earth. Why don't you just enable Ukraine to finish this war tomorrow?
Well, if you knew anything about what you were talking about, you'd be able. You do. I don't think you do, really. I don't think you do because it's a little more complicated than that. But it sounds easy. We're in the process of trying to make a deal. If we make a deal, that's great. If we don't make a deal, it'll be a lot of people are going to be paying a big price.
President Trump, so a question to both of you, if you don't mind. So
I love his haircut. I'm going to try that. No, I love it. Go ahead.
So, as we all know, China controls 90% of the global supply of critical minerals. They have launched attacks on Australian companies, primarily Lynas Rare Earths. What will happen to China if they don't play fair with this?
So, it's a very interesting question. We have a tremendous power, and that's the power of tariff. And I think that China will come to the table and make a very fair deal, because if they don't, they're going to be paying us 157% in tariffs. Right now, they're paying 55 to 57%. When I was first president, first term, we had the greatest economy we've ever had. And as you know, people don't write too much about it, but China paid us hundreds of billions of dollars worth of money for tariffs. Biden left it, but he didn't enforce it. He gave exceptions to almost everything. And so he left the tariffs, but he didn't really collect the numbers that he should have collected, and because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. So now the tariffs are much higher on China than they were before, and they're high on other countries depending on whether or not we like that country or we get along, and that's for national security purposes. So I made deals with Japan, I made deals with the European Union, or the whole of Europe practically, but the European Union, made deals with a lot of different people. We have a very fair deal for, I will say, Australia's paying a low number. They do have, I'll change it, we have a little bit of an advantage on that one. I told you, the advantage we have is airplanes. We sell a lot of airplanes to them, and they need them. It's a very vibrant place, and people go in and out, and I look forward to going there myself. And I think it's unlikely I'll be taking a ship. That's a long
journey.
That's a long but China has treated us with great respect. Now, in the past, they didn't treat other presidents with great respect. They would take hundreds of billions and even trillions of dollars out of the country, and they would spend it and build their military. Now they're treating us with great respect. Now, we'll see what happens. I said, if we don't make a deal, I'm putting on an additional 100% on November 1st. I think we'll make a deal. They threatened us with rare earths, and I threatened them with tariffs, but I could also threaten them with many other things, like airplanes. You know about airplanes, because they can't get parts for their airplanes. We build their airplanes. We do a great job. They're largely Boeings. And we could stop the parts. We did stop the parts, actually, when they did the initial threat. That's a big... They closed down over 400 of their airplanes. But we don't want to do that. But we have a much simpler thing. If we don't make a deal, we'll charge them a very substantial tariff. And they'll be paying us hundreds of billions of dollars a year, which they're basically paying right now. We had presidents that allowed China and other countries get away with murder. We're not going to allow that, but we're going to have a fair deal. I want to be good to China. I love my relationship with President Xi. We have a great relationship. I believe after we leave South Korea, we'll be there together. We thought that would be a good place to meet, and we're going to be meeting. I'll be in Malaysia, I'll be in Japan, I'll be in a couple of others. We'll be sort of doing a little bit of a tour. I've been invited to go to China, and I'll be doing that sometime fairly early next year. We have it sort of set. But I think we're going to have a very good relationship with China. And again, they will threaten us with rare earths. I don't think they're threatening us too much right now. But they could do that, but I threaten them with something I think is much more powerful, and that's tariffs. Because at a certain point, they will not be able to do any business with us. At a certain point, if they pay enough tariffs, it's almost like saying, we don't want to do business with you, but it's probably nicer. Saying you're going to pay 158, 157% tariff is a nicer way of saying that we don't want to do business with you. And if they don't do business with us, I think China's in big trouble, I'll be honest with you. I think China is... I don't know that they even make it. I really do. I believe that they're in big trouble, and I don't want them to be in big trouble. I want them to do great. I want them to thrive, but we have to thrive together. It's a two-way street. I think when we finish our meetings, and it's going to be a big deal. Look, I'm meeting with a lot of other countries, but this seems to be the one that people are very interested in. I think when we finish our meetings in South Korea, China and I will have a really fair and really great trade deal together. I want them to buy soybeans. They stopped buying our soybeans because they thought that was punishment. And it is punishment to our farmers, but we're not going to allow that to happen because I made a great trade deal with China, a $50 billion trade deal. And they were great about it. They were doing everything that they were supposed to do. And then when Biden came in, you know, I used to call President Xi all the time to say, thank you, or you're not buying enough. In other words, they were supposed to buy. Biden, do you think Biden ever called him? I don't think Biden ever called him. You think Biden lied awake at night thinking about trade with China? He didn't know what he was doing. He was an incompetent president. We had an incompetent president, but you don't have that anymore. So I think we're going to end up having a fantastic deal with China. It's going to be a great trade deal. It's going to be fantastic for both countries, and it's going to be fantastic for the entire world. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Keep going. Thank you, press.
And that was another meeting of world leader in the White House, this time Australian Premier Albanese with Donald Trump. Loads to pick through there. Let's give you the details. The top of the agenda was the signing of a huge new deal. Central to that, critical minerals. You cannot overestimate how important the critical minerals are now. Everything that you have in your hand in terms of tech, in your car, in your home, needs lithium. It needs all those rare earth minerals. 90% of those are controlled by China. The reason there is so much uncertainty on the stock markets right now is because China has threatened to stop or limit its exports of critical minerals to Australia. A huge deal done today between Australia, very mineral rich. We hear here of an $8.5 billion pipeline of rare earth minerals. America agreeing to set up processing plants on Australian soil, paying for the infrastructure in return for those minerals. It's a huge, huge deal. In return, America selling defence, selling Boeing airlines. Donald Trump there kept saying Australia's a beautiful place, but it's at the far end of the planet. They need aeroplanes, and we are selling also submarines. Top of the deal is this so-called AUKUS review, and that's a trade deal, a defence deal between Australia, the United Kingdom and the United States, a key strategic deal to make sure the Red Dragon of China is kept at bay and dominance is maintained, particularly in that Pacific area there where, of course, Australia has control of the seas in relation to Taiwan. It's going to be so fascinating moving forward. And let's bring you in, Nigel Nelson. I thought that was a fascinating exercise. Once again, the three things that make these meetings successful. You flatter Donald Trump within an inch of his life. You give him what he wants, in this case, rare earth minerals. You take what he's selling, in this case, defence, 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 and you talk about golf. Once again, they talked about golf there, and I think Albanese played a blinder.
Yeah, I mean, he had a much better meeting with President Trump than some others have. And I mean, I think Zelensky is the obvious examples there. The most interesting thing, I think, that came out of it was Donald Trump's remarks about China and the forthcoming summit he's got with President Xi coming up. It was clear that Taiwan will be on the agenda. In other words, that if China invades Taiwan, America will come to Taiwan's aid. China's plan is that they will have Taiwan back by 2047 because that's the 100-year anniversary of the People's Republic being founded. So that's a really big thing, especially for the Taiwanese. Then the tariffs were the interesting thing. Yes. That what Donald Trump is saying is, right, if you don't come to a deal, I'm going to put tariffs up another 100%, and you'll be paying 157%. In a sense that it's kind of carrot and stick. That you come and trade with us is fine, but the stick's going to be those tariffs.
It's brinksmanship. He said here at some point China won't be able to do business with us in America. I believe they're in trouble and I want them to prosper. Basically, the art of the deal, the brinksmanship, who will blink first? Will China unlock those rare earth minerals? Will these tariffs be dropped? That's a conversation for South Korea next time. A huge amount to go into there. Nigel Nelson, thank you for your analysis. But let's move on now back to domestic issues, because the Father Ted creator, Graham Linehan, well, he said that he will face no further action following his arrest, of course, at Heathrow Airport. Linehan was astonishingly arrested by 5 armed police officers in September, and the incident sparks a huge international furore regarding the perilous state of free speech in the United Kingdom. Well, let's speak now with the External Affairs Officer at the Free Speech Union, Connie Shaw. Connie, welcome to the show. May I first say another huge victory for the Free Speech Union. You guys are really, really doing something incredible. Let's get back to this case. Graham Linehan, many people say this is a victory at last for common sense.
Well, you can look at it as a victory, but I think considering how horrific the circumstances have been, it feels like quite a bitter victory, because to remind your listeners what happened to Graham, he was on his way back to the UK to come to a trial for a different trial at the behest of another trans activist. And that's when he was arrested by 5 armed police officers. He's said many times one of the reasons why he's left, the main reason why he's left the UK is because he simply cannot get any work here because of the extent that he's been hammered for standing up for women and girls and lesbians and gay men. And look what happened to him when he returned. He was proved absolutely right. And not only that, but he was then kept in police custody for about 16 hours and he was released only when a nurse discovered that his blood pressure was so high that he needed to go to A&E because it was in stroke territory. So whilst it is a victory in the sense that nothing else is going to happen to Graham on this case, there needs to be a serious reckoning within the police, and that's why we are also now suing the Met Police for wrongful arrest and imprisonment.
How many more of these cases do you think we're going to get? I mean, how many times have we now said, Connie Shaw, this is it, the madness is over? Harry Miller was victorious against the Royal College of Policing at the Royal Courts of Justice over non-crime hate incidents. That didn't stop the madness. The Supreme Court found that a woman is indeed a biological adult human. Anybody with half a brain knows that to be the case, except we still see departments of government, the NHS, even Parliament itself, trying to ignore those rules. And now we see Graham Linehan persecuted for just being offensive. The last time I checked, that's not only allowable, but it should be encouraged in the United Kingdom. Do you get a feeling, Connie Shaw, that this victory today won't be the last time we see more of this craziness in Britain?
Yes, I share that concern that this won't be the last time, although the story of Graham has certainly raised the free speech issue beyond people who naturally follow the problem. This has really broken news across the world about the state of affairs in the UK when it comes to the Stasi behaviour of the British police. So it's definitely broken the camel's back in a way, but like you say, who knows how many more cases we will have to see until this country has a serious reckoning. And of course, Lord Young, our General Secretary and founder, has been appointed by Kemi Badenoch to review our laws around free speech, and that should hopefully be out before the end of the year, because hilariously, Mark Rowley claimed that the police had no option but to arrest Graham and other people like him because of legislation. There are issues with legislation, which is why Toby is doing the review. But at the same time, when we challenged Graham's bail conditions and managed to get them all overturned, the Met Police didn't even turn up to defend themselves. So clearly there's, when they say that they don't have a choice to behave in this way, if they really stood by what they were doing, they would have at least come to defend themselves, surely. So like you say, yes, hopefully this will be the final case, but I fear that it won't be.
OK, Connie Shaw, thanks for joining us there from the Free Speech Union. A victory for Graham Linehan, a victory for the Free Speech Union. And tonight at 7 o'clock on GB News, tonight, I'll speak to Graham Linehan myself to get it straight from the horse's mouth. Connie Shaw, superb. Thanks for joining us today on the show. Appreciate your time. Now, moving back to the issue of Sadiq Khan. Sadiq Khan has been accused of covering up evidence of grooming gangs in London. The mayor is alleged to have read reports of young girls being raped in hotels by groups of men, while publicly denying that there were any grooming gangs in the capital. Now, Nigel Nelson, we're going to bring you in at this point. Susan Hall, who's the leader of the Conservative Assembly in City Hall, and we're waiting for her to get on the line. While you're here, what's your response to this?
Well, I mean, I don't think there was a cover-up. Susan will speak for herself, but certainly it was under questioning from Susan, where Sadiq Khan made the point that there had been no reported incidents to the police of grooming gangs in London. That doesn't mean there were no grooming gangs in London. It just means that the police didn't have any reports, and the Assistant Commissioner, Matt Twist, backed him up.
OK, let's now get to the leader of the Conservatives in the London Assembly, and of course that is Susan Hall. Susan, welcome to the show, the woman of the moment. I think Sadiq Khan enjoys being questioned by you about as much as he enjoys going for a root canal. Do you think at the moment you've got him by the teeth, as it were? Do you think he's guilty of a cover-up?
I think it's all too serious to even think of that. I think it is absolutely diabolical. My job is to scrutinise him and asking questions of the mayor. The least you can get is a proper answer. And we never get a proper answer from him. And he could easily have said, we are concerned about this because there was a national issue at the time and it was being brought up and we're looking into this. The fact is that I've spoken to so many victims, or survivors, as they would prefer to be called. And this has been going on for a very long time. And he clearly knows it is. You've only got to look at the Express, at some of the history here. So to pretend he didn't know what I was talking about was absolutely disgraceful. It's far too important for that.
And Susan Hall, the number of this is that there are a number of reports, written 4 different reports by His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and the Fire and Rescue Services between 2016 and 2025 that detailed 6 minimum very harrowing cases, the details of which are too grim to go into, but let's just go into some of the headlines. Victim 1, a 15-year-old girl who told police she'd been raped by numerous men after going missing for 4 days. Victim 2, 2 men identified as suspects in the sexual exploitation of a 13-year-old girl. Victim 3, a 15-year-old was plied with substances and made to carry out sex acts on groups of men in a hotel room. More victims given booze, raped by groups of men. These reports that Sadiq Khan had seen and had commented upon. I guess he would say in his defence that while he's aware of the individuals, he's saying he doesn't recognise these instances as being linked to specific grooming rape gangs. Is that correct?
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, I'm interested to see what he says. At the end of the day, we know this is happening. And since I've been asking questions, and it's been on social media, so for at least 7 or 8 months, I've had girls get in contact with me to tell me what's happened to them. And it's all pretty much the same in different circumstances. The groups are not always Pakistani men. I know in my questioning of him, he wanted me to say Pakistani men because he would then scream racist at me. I didn't, because I don't believe that they are, and they certainly aren't. The evidence I have, it's various different people. But he just wanted to score political points, and this is just too serious for that. He could have come out with something that was far more sympathetic to any of the rape victims that heard it. And they could have said they'd look into it. The first time the police have actually admitted to it was on Thursday last week, when the Commissioner came to see us. And he came to see us about closing front counters, nothing to do with the rape gangs. And suddenly the leader of Labour's group asked him about these rape gangs, which I thought was odd at the time, because Labour haven't asked any questions on this. And it was clearly he'd obviously been asked to, so that the Commissioner could then say there is some evidence of it. So I assume that they'd already gotten wind of the Express story. I know they would have had a right to reply. So perhaps that's why it came out. That's not good enough, Martin. This is too serious.
Susan Hall, do you think this is indicative of a broader situation? I had Maggie Oliver on the show earlier on, and she said what's happening in London appears to just chime with what she's seen nationwide, particularly in places like Rotherham, and that is a kind of institutional burying of the head in the sand because the truth is too grotesque and the truth might be too damaging politically in terms of the police, in terms of politicians, and in terms of a broader, not necessarily a cover-up, but certainly a kind of, they'd rather look the other way than face the grim truth in the eye.
Yes, what a wonderful woman Maggie Oliver is. You know, we should all recognise that. And Martin Peters Charlie Peters for doing so much to bring it out. I don't know whether you'd call it a cover-up. I'm sure technically we shouldn't say that. But in effect, nobody wants to talk about it. In the meantime, these kids, generally girls, not always, generally from care homes or from certainly very difficult backgrounds, but not always. Some of the ones I've seen aren't. They need to be looked after, and for everybody to shove it under the carpet is absolutely not good enough. And this is way above politics. He should have answered my questions properly, because he knows full well that is my job, to scrutinise him, and he won't answer questions properly.
OK, well, thanks for joining us. Thank you for waiting patiently while Donald Trump was speaking away for over half an hour there. That's the leader of the Conservatives in the London Assembly, Susan Hall. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today on GBNews. Nigel Nelson, quick response to you. Isn't that the point Susan Hall is making there? It's like, stop the political point scoring and actually just admit there's a serious problem with sexual exploitation and group sex problems all over the United Kingdom, and why should London be any exception?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's no question that child sexual abuse is taking place in London, and Sadiq Khan hasn't denied that. Also, things have improved. I mean, under Sadiq Khan, he has been improving stuff that the reporting of allegations has been improved. Victim-blaming language has been banned, and officers who collect evidence are now being supported in a way that they weren't before.
OK, Nigel Nelson, thank you very much. Now, we have some rights of reply to read out, and a spokesperson for the Mayor of London told GBNews this: "It is not a cover-up," and refuted the allegations, adding, "Sadiq is committed to doing all he can to protect children in London from organised criminal and sexual exploitation and bring perpetrators to justice." And this includes his £15.6 million violence and exploitation support service, which provides specialist support to young Londoners who are vulnerable, caught up in or being exploited by criminal gangs in the capital, as well as supporting the Met to deliver a new child-first approach to safeguarding and enforcement action to tackle county lines. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for the Metropolitan Police told GBNews this: "We are utterly committed to protecting vulnerable children and bringing those responsible to justice. And our data shows the group-based child sexual abuse and exploitation picture in London is more varied than in other parts of the country and does not neatly align with patterns of methodology, ethnicity or nationality seen elsewhere and reported on extensively." And finally, a spokesperson for the Home Office has told GBNews this: "We have initiated a new policing operation, Operation Beacon Port, overseen by the National Crime Agency, which has already flagged more than 1,200 closed cases of group-based child sexual exploitation for review." Now, still to come, we'll reveal the latest bombshells from Prince Andrew's teenage sex accuser, as GBNews has got hold of Virginia Giuffre's posthumous memoir. But first, and thanks for your patience in waiting, here's your headlines, and it's Katie Bowen.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 5:35. US President Donald Trump is hosting Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese at the White House. The two leaders are discussing AUKUS, the joint treaty between Australia, the US and the UK. The Australian Prime Minister said that he was hoping to take the partnership to the next level. Well, during that press conference, President Trump said that he does not think Ukraine will win in its war with Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will travel to London to attend a meeting on Friday of the Coalition of the Willing. Elsewhere, a palace source has told GBNews that allegations against Prince Andrew should be examined in an appropriate way. The Metropolitan Police is actively looking into the allegations that he asked his taxpayer-funded bodyguard to dig the dirt on his sex accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Amazon says it's fixed the original problem that caused a major internet outage this morning, but that full recovery to all sites will take more time. More than 1,000 companies have been hit by the outage affecting Amazon's cloud system. Apps including Snapchat, Duolingo and even UK banks like Lloyds and Halifax have all been caught up in the chaos. The Metropolitan Police have dropped a probe into comedian Graham Linehan over 3 gender-critical tweets. In an email to Mr Linehan's lawyer sent this morning, a Met Police detective said that following a review of the evidence by the Crown Prosecution Service, no further action will be taken in this matter. And Pizza Hut is to shut 68 restaurants after the company behind its UK venues fell into administration. The company has not disclosed how many workers will be impacted by the closures. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
We're back. We've got some more breaking news. Not only a victory for Graham Linehan, but the Metropolitan Police has just announced they will no longer investigate so-called non-crime hate incidents. A spokesperson has said after it was announced earlier on that the Father Ted creator Graham Linehan would face no further action over social media posts about trans issues. Just to repeat that breaking news if you're tuning in, the Metropolitan Police will no longer investigate so-called non-crime hate incidents, a spokesperson has said, after it was announced earlier on today that the Father Ted creator Graham Linehan would face no further action over social media posts about trans issues. What a day it has been for free speech in the country. Non-crime hate incidents dropped on the same day as charges against Graham Linehan were dropped. Just to repeat, Graham Linehan will join me tonight on GB News at 7 p.m. to give full insight into what's been an incredible day. Nigel Nelson has been whisked back in to comment on this. 2 victories for common sense, 2 victories for free speech in one day, Nigel Nelson.
Well, yes. I mean, I think that the police can't be blamed for carrying out the laws that Parliament gives them. The sensible result was that there was no prosecution at the end of it.
Those coppers chose to arrest him with the machine guns. That was a police
Well, hang on.
decision.
First of all, the police are operationally independent. That's absolutely right. But all they're doing...
They didn't have to nick him.
They chose to. They are carrying out the laws that Parliament gives them. So, on the surface of it, that Graham Lineham's quotes were an offence. The rest of us looked at them and thought they were just a bad joke. They were a bad joke.
They chose to make it an offence. That was a policing choice.
It was a policing choice. You're absolutely right. But they were basically working on the law as it exists at the moment. When the CPS saw the evidence, turned around and said, "No, there isn't enough to prosecute," and dropped the case. That is the right result. It was right to drop the case, but you can't blame the police for carrying out their own duties.
You can. And I just did. And I explained very clearly why. They didn't have to arrest Graham Linehan when he landed at Heathrow Airport with machine guns. They don't have to knock on people's doors for offensive tweets. They choose to do it. It's an operational decision. I agree. The law is an ass. Is it time to kick that up the ass?
It is.
The whole law is wrong. And surely the Metropolitan Police now, making this decision, should pave the way for other police forces across the land to follow their suit and stop this nonsense. Police the streets and stop policing tweets.
Yeah, the police not making the decision about not prosecuting, that falls to the prosecuting authorities. They've decided not to prosecute.
Yeah, but old Bill, knock on
You
the
are
door.
Absolutely right that it's about time that MPs looked again at the law as it's being applied at the moment, and if it needs changes, it should be changed. What the police are asking for is some clarity from Parliament. Ultimately, it's Parliament's responsibility.
Harry Miller took the Royal College of Police into court years ago, and non-crime hate incidents were ruled against, but they didn't do anything about it. It's taken the Graham Linehan case to do this, and isn't this the point? I refer you again to the fact this is a choice. It's a decision. And police officers don't have to knock on people's doors for things they've said on social media. Someone somewhere has told them to go and do it.
Yes, Parliament has. No, it is Parliament that's done that. Parliament has passed...
Coppers could turn a blind eye. Chief superintendents could say, this is a waste of police time, go and nick a burglar.
Parliament sets the laws, the police have to follow those, the prosecuting authorities then decide whether there's enough evidence to take it to court and get a conviction. That's the way the system works. Parliament needs to look at it again so the police have some proper clarity about what they should do and what they shouldn't do.
Yet at the same time, we've got a Labour government rattling around trying to redefine Islamophobia. This is the problem. They're so obsessed with the meaning of words and hurting people's feelings. They've lost the plot. Well, we don't need a new term for Islamophobia. We've got one. We don't have a blasphemy law. We don't
have a term for Islamophobia.
We don't need to arrest people for making so-called transphobic tweets. It's moronic.
We don't have a form of words for Islamophobia.
And we don't need one.
That is what they're trying to struggle to get to.
Why do we need one?
Because we have a code for anti-Semitism. It's an international code. It's adopted by all official organisations in this country, from the government to the police. What we should be doing is finding something similar for Islamophobia. The form of words is proving difficult to come up with, but it doesn't mean it's not worth trying.
It's a word salad. And we don't want a word salad. We don't need, for example, a definition of Islamophobia to include the phrase Muslim rape gangs as being defined as Islamophobic. That will give cover to rapists.
You're right.
What's the point?
We don't need that. That is why the struggle is going on to find a form of words. A parliamentary group came up with a form of words. It was deemed to be against the basic tenets of free speech. That's why that wasn't adopted by the government. And so the search goes on for a proper definition.
But the trouble with all this is that we hear all the time, you probably hate this phrase, two-tier policing,
I do.
Two-tier justice.
I do, it's multi-tier policing.
Well, hang on. The point of the matter is you've got two-tier policing. If you can be arrested for making a transphobic joke, what's the point? Well, it's utterly a waste of police time. At a time where crime and safety on the streets is in a perilous situation. We had a Jewish parliamentarian in the studio early on who feels afraid to wear any visible signs of his Jewishness on the streets of London. We're getting people banned from football matches because they're Jews. Forget about the violence. That can be overcome easily. Anybody who understands a football match, a fruity football match, an Old Firm derby, a Millwall game, a local derby. You get the old bill around the fans, you walk them in, you walk them out, job done. This wasn't about safety. It's about the ingress of people feeling that their opinions are more important. And I put it to you again, if you give a definition of Islamophobia, you'll embolden the people that are already making Jews feel terrified to be on the streets of Britain.
No Jew should be frightened of being on the streets of Britain. You're absolutely right, and yes, indeed they are. But some Muslims are too. So that is why you have an Islamophobia definition. That's a problem to come up with. When it comes to the football, what the police are saying is that in their judgment, it was not a safe match to police with their existing resources. What is happening now is the government are trying to find a way to give them the resources they need to make sure fans can attend that match.
But the trouble is now, all of my intel, I've spoken to some of the lads in the West Midlands who do the Raise the Colours. They know the football, the firms, if you like. It was a counter-protest from the far left, was planned. Antifa, Stand Up to Racism, the local Muslim activists. Now, that was all planned. The police blinked. They bowled it. And now, what's happened is Tommy Robinson's brigade is saying they're going to turn up. The hard left are going to turn up. The local Islamic community. It's worse. It's worse now than it would have been because the police bottled it.
Well, if the police didn't have the resources for a safe game, and it was that the local safety group that decided the game wasn't safe, they then need the proper resources to do it. That is what we're trying to happen. I mean, what I'd like to see is politics taken out of sport completely. None of this should ever have happened, but it has.
The knee, pride armbands, all of that, you want that gone?
No, I mean, I don't think that...
takes politics out of sport completely. On that, I'd agree with you, mate.
No, I think taking the knee is to do with something completely different, and that is about the racist chance that footballers get.
You think it's about that? A lot of fans don't. They think it's about George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, which has been discredited as a Marxist racket.
But the reason the Premier League has introduced taking the knee, and 20 of the league team captains are doing it, is because of racism, the racist abuse that their footballers get.
Have you seen how many footballers are from ethnic minority backgrounds? Most of the England team. I mean, you don't go to football matches?
No.
I do go to football matches, and you just don't hear racism on the terraces like you used to back in the day. I simply fail to believe it. But look, back to the issue of non-crime hate incidents. Do you think where Metropolitan Police has gone first up the ladder, they probably realise they're in a perilous situation where they're losing the public. They're utterly losing the public. The police aren't respected now by the majority of taxpayers because they think, why are you faffing around on social media when I can't get my car theft sorted out? Well, I'm getting mugged at night. I'm afraid to go out. Everywhere I go, I can smell dope. I'm scared to take public transport. I don't want to go out after dark. If I mention the fact I'm concerned about asylum seekers in a hotel near me, the police call me far right or racist. It's like the public has been left behind by policing, and there's no greater embodiment of that than these preposterous non-crime hate incidents.
I think that they need to be looked at by the people who make those laws, and when it comes to policing, it would have helped if the Tories hadn't got rid of 20,000 officers, because we need those police on the streets. They're now being brought back in.
Not on the tweet.
Absolutely right, but we're on the same side there. My argument is that the police cannot be blamed for carrying out the laws that Parliament gives them.
Well, the laws then in that case need to have a bonfire of the vanities of the laws. Just to repeat that breaking news, the police have just announced in these past few moments they're going to drop the Metropolitan Police investigating so-called non-crime hate incidents. The perfect guest for this. He's in Australia and he's tuned in. He's the co-founder of Fair Cop and the former police officer Harry Miller. Harry, I'm so delighted we've got you from down under because you took the police to court. You thought you'd won. Non-crime hate incidents rolled on, though, sadly. But today, the Mets have announced they're going to drop them. How are you feeling?
Fantastic. I mean, they've been ignoring the courts, the High Court, the Court of Appeal for many, many years now. But this is, on the face of it, good news. However, it does come with a caveat. What worries me is that having ditched non-crime hate incidents, the police are now going to adopt what is called shadow crime reporting. In other words, without any evidence, without any trial, without 12 good men and true, without reference to even the Crown Prosecution Service, they are going to start issuing people with crime instance rather than non-crime instance. I myself have a shadow crime record against my name for writing for The Critic a couple of years ago, in which I said that my stalker, a man, was in fact a man. Lincolnshire police recorded that as a hate crime, not a non-crime hate incident, a hate crime. The good news is we're taking Lincolnshire police to court over that. What worries me now, though, is that the police are so used to not doing a job of properly assessing evidence and prosecuting that they are going to feel as though somebody has stolen their favourite toy from the pram. And what they are going to do now is that they are going to continue checking people's thinking, they are going to continue arresting people, and they are going to continue smearing and besmirching people with shadow crime records. All of this has to stop, and we have to get back to a situation where a person is innocent until proven guilty, and that the burden of proof rests solely with the police. It rests solely with the CPS. It rests solely with the state. British people are innocent until proven guilty, and that's what I want to be the new norm.
And yet, Harry Miller, you were victorious, or so you thought, against the Royal College of Policing at the Royal Courts of Justice in what became a test case for free speech globally. You've gone down as a free speech warrior. You thought you'd retired, but you can't retire because this madness goes on. Can I get your reaction today to the news of Graham Linehan? I mean, an astonishing scene where he was arrested at gunpoint. 5 machine-gun-toting coppers at Heathrow Airport for simply making a tweet. Those charges today have been dropped.
Well, great, but it's a little bit like celebrating somebody not being smacked in the face, isn't it? It should never have happened in the first place. When we correct such an egregious wrong, what our response should be is not to celebrate, although of course we're pleased, is to say, how did this happen in the first place? Who are the idiots that allowed this to take place in the first place? Because these people need running out of their jobs. We do not live in a state of fear, or we shouldn't be living in a state of fear at any rate. And the people who are doing this, they have no right to be police officers. They have no right to carry guns. They have no right to stop us as we try and enter the country. They have no right to do any of this. And the people at the top, they need running out, and the officers who are so keen to carry out these orders, they need to be fired and they need to find another job, because they are not the sort of people that we need to be policing us. It's as simple as that.
So in a nutshell, Harry Miller, got quick 30 seconds, and thank you so much for joining us down under. Is the madness over, or could there be another chapter yet?
No, the madness is not over. I can predict that I will be doing your show for the next year, Martin, and we will be talking about similar egregious acts of lunacy by the police. Like I said, they do not want to give this up because it's easy. It requires no burden of proof. They can just go out and they do what they want to do, which is to be ideological police officers. Policing tweets is far easier than policing streets, and they don't want to give that up, and they don't want to learn how to become proper, effective police officers. So I'll have a tenner with you now, Martin. I'll be back on your show doing this again.
Well, Harry Miller, I fear you're right. But look, thank you very much for getting out of your bed down under. It might be too early for a glass of champagne there, Harry Miller, but it's opening time in Britain. It's always opening time somewhere. Permission granted to have a celebratory glass of fizz down under, Harry Miller. A pleasure, as always, to have your company. Thank you very much for joining us, Harry Miller. Now, what a superb show it's been. And just to repeat, at 7 p.m. this evening, I'll be hosting GB News Tonight. And I'll be joined by that man, Graham Linehan. Tune in first, but here's your weather. See you later.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon, this is your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. There are plenty of heavy showers around today, and there's more unsettled weather to come as we go through this week, particularly on Thursday. It could be very wet and windy, but for the time being we do have low pressure around the UK. In fact, we have a double low pressure system set up with low pressure towards the north and also towards the south. It's the one in the south that's been the driving force for the heavy thundery showers that many places across particularly England and Wales have been getting through today, and there are more more of them to come as we go overnight, albeit they are going to ease a little bit, so some drier weather here and there. Clearer skies across parts of eastern Scotland, down into parts of northern England and perhaps some parts of central and southern England, and here temperatures could take a bit of a drop and there could be some fog around. Elsewhere, staying relatively mild and some murky conditions with the cloudy, wet weather at times as well. First thing tomorrow morning then, across much of Scotland away from the Far East, it's looking pretty cloudy, quite murky then, and also there will be some outbreaks of rain. Across Northern Ireland, it's a similar story, some heavy showery bursts pushing in from the west. And across England and Wales, well, yes, maybe some brightness at times, a bit more brightness than we'll have seen through today, but also a fair few showers around. Perhaps slightly fewer showers than through today, and they're not looking quite as intense, but nonetheless, the odd heavy shower is still possible. But the winds also should be a little bit lighter than today, and with a greater chance of seeing some of that sunshine breaking through and those lighter winds, for many, it is going to feel a little bit warmer perhaps, even though temperatures are still around average for the time of year. And do watch out, as there will still be some showery bursts of rain around. More showery bursts of rain to come as we go through the evening, but it is going to turn a little bit dry as we go overnight Tuesday night into Wednesday. Wednesday perhaps looking like the driest day of the week for many, because by Thursday, well, that's when we could have some particularly wet and windy weather pushing its way in. So do watch out for that. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Drivers on the A9 northbound will face delays due to a broken down vehicle near Inveralmond roundabout. In Derbyshire, congestion on the A38 southbound between the A50 and junction A5 132 adds 20 minutes of travel time, with normal conditions expected late tonight. Essex travellers on the A12 between junctions 18 and 19 face 50-minute delays due to a vehicle crossing incident. Kent's M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 3 and 2 is experiencing congestion, adding 20 minutes to journeys. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.